Hey, gentlemen, gentlemen, the guys who just walked into the chambers, can you shut that back door for me, please? Thank you. Okay, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's today is October 24th, 2023. It is 7 p.m. Actually, it's 7:01 p.m. And I'd like to welcome everybody to the chamber. And to kick things off this evening, I would like to call upon Councilmember George Syrup to start the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Madam City Clerk, if you can please take the roll call.
Yes, Mayor. Good evening. Councilmember Andrews.
Present.
Councilmember Bonilla.
Present.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Present.
Councilmember Roach. Present. Councilmember Syrup.
Present.
Councilmember Cermeño.
Presente.
Mayor Salinas.
Present. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. City Attorney, if you can please deliver our closed session report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The council convened in closed session at 5:30 this evening pursuant to posted notice in the Brown Act, and with all members present and no public speakers, the council considered three matters, all in pending litigation. The council discussed and took no reportable action on the Mitchell Engineering case, the city versus Alameda County case, and the storm drain claim from the Medrano property owners at 3800 Faircliff Street. Gave direction to staff, but otherwise took no reportable action. The closed session adjourned at 6:15. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Next, we have a special presentation to kick things off. And I know we have the Eden Area Regional Occupational Center here, and of course, our superintendent, Blaine Thorpe. And, you know, and just for the record, Mr. Thorpe. Right. And to the other guy who knows how to pick out a good fedora. There you go. Thank you. The special presentation will be led by the assistant to the city manager, Miss Mary Thomas.
Thank you so much. So I'm excited here to present. I have
these awards that we, Emily Wong, who unfortunately did such amazing work on this and then is quite ill, so is going to be just logging on online, but she would have been here otherwise. And we accepted these on behalf of the City Hayward. These are the Business Partner of the Year awards for ROP, and we accepted these on behalf of a summer internship, a learn and earn program that we did, specifically around food action. And it hosted 8 interns. We had their names up there from HUSD. And they were placed, we had 3 wonderful sites that hosted them. One was the ROP Garden, and we had obviously Superintendent Torpy, as well as Lyndon and Dale from ROP that were the mentors to the interns. And then we had a farm mentor named Loa at Tennyson Farm. And then we had Jan and Nimon from forester.org that also hosted interns, and they developed a webpage about gleaning in Hayward as part of their internship. So we have some interns here tonight, but I also wanted to give the opportunity to our partners to just say a few words for you guys and then take a picture. And then I also wanted to mention that we had the opportunity to go hear their final presentations. The interns, they did a wonderful job. They practiced a lot. They presented to us, Emily and myself, about their impact of doing this food internship, including talking a lot about mental health and farming and how that really helped getting outdoors, talking about skill building and the different benefits of that. So thanks to the interns that are here tonight. I will pass it off now to Superintendent Torpy to say a few words. I will also mention that we also hosted 18 other interns from Chabot College and Cal State East Bay. So we had very active internship program as part of the Food Action Plan. So we will be recognizing a few of those tonight as well, even though that wasn't part of this award. So.
Good evening, City Council, Mr. Mayor. It's a great honor and privilege to be here to represent the Eden Area Regional Occupational Program. My name is Blaine Torpy. I'm the superintendent. And I just want to say that I'm new to Hayward. And what I have seen in the last year and a half is an incredible collaboration between city residents, city government, and education. And the small thing I want to say about what we did this summer when we had our student interns working on the farms is that it's an excellent example of the education city that I know you've been talking about and thinking about. It was a collaboration between the city that reached out to many different members in the community, brought us together. We worked all year, and we ended up being able to provide an excellent opportunity for students. So I want to thank Mary Thomas, Emily Wong, and Javier Castro, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
And before you proceed, Ms. Thomas, I also enter the building is the superintendent, Hayward Unified School District Superintendent, Dr. Jason Ryman.
And actually, he was who I was going to invite up next. So welcome, welcome. If you want to say a few words.
Right on cue, and you walked right in.
So thank you. I think I'll probably be repeating a lot of what Superintendent Torpy was saying earlier, but that vision of having an education city and the partnership that goes alongside it really makes a difference for the whole community. And for our students, the 8 students who participated in this program in a paid internship, the partnership, especially I want to recognize the work that Mary and Emily did on this project really made this possible. It really has been transformative for our young people. It's helped them to understand the importance of sustainable food, the importance of environmentalism, how to work with community. And so we want to thank the City Council, the Mayor, and all of you for your partnership and support of our students in school. And so we're excited to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now onto the presentation portion. And so I will say that there will be a work session on the full food action plan after we do the consent calendar and public comment, but we wanted to do the presentation first. So I wanted to invite up Javier Castro, who was and started as an administrative intern with the city and has now been an acting senior secretary, and he's been doing amazing work in our office and really helped lead this. So if you want to help us present these. So the first one is to Sarah Cruz Trejo. Thank you so much for being an intern with the city. You can come up and grab it. And you can stay up here. We're going to take a picture. Emilio Rodriguez, thank you so much for being an intern with the city. I think your family's here, which is great. And Melanie Perez, thank you so much. And these are 3 of our 5 high school interns. A couple of them are away at college. And then we also have, we have some, where did Oh, the Cal State East Bay students are outside, so we'll go get them. But in the meantime, if everyone wants to come up here for a photo, we can do that. Great, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And I will say that Norma Diaz and Veronica Ortiz really were instrumental in making this happen, as they advocated for paid internships all year long. So
We meet again.
thank you guys.
So we'll get the city clerk.
And now we have we have a certificate for.
Yeah.
Yeah, come be in the photo. So this is Professor Ryan Gamba from Cal State East Bay, and he also hosted, I think it was 10?
Yes.
10 interns at Cal State East Bay who worked on these topics for us today. And we have one of them here. Remind me your name.
It's Azine.
Is an A.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, here we go.
Are you gonna stand up? Sir? Just stand there. We just- Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
There's actually two of us, which is the restroom.
We could, do you want to take a picture real fast just with?
Yeah.
When she's still in the restroom.
We're good. I'll turn this off.
Ms. Thomas, was this also at the same time, the Partner of the Year Award and certificates of the Food Action Plan interns? So this was everything? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So we just did. All right. All right. Wonderful. So let's give the students a big round of applause again. It's always good. You know. Oh, you guys want to say something? Of course you do. You were the 3 keynote speakers at the award ceremony.
You're comfortable? Yeah, go for it.
Wonderful.
Okay, good evening. My name is Melanie Perez, and I'm going to be talking about the great opportunity I had to be an intern at the Tennyson Farm. Some of the things I learned was planting flowers as well as fruits and vegetables and communicating better with people, given that it was a community garden. With this experience, I was able to build a stronger connection with my parents since they both love to plant. It also encouraged me to go outside more with them. And I would like to thank the City of Hayward, HUSD, and the Eden ROP for letting me have this opportunity. And I encourage for this program to continue to inspire the youth. Yeah. Thank you. Hi, my name is Sarah Cruz Trejo. I'm a student at Hayward High School, and today I'll be sharing my experience in participating in the HUSD Garden Internship Program. For 5 weeks of my summer, I was able to go to the Tennyson High School farm and garden alongside the Tennyson gardening teacher and another high school student. During this time, I was able to take care of and maintain plants using sustainable and organic farming methods. I want to thank the City of Hayward, the Hayward Unified School District, and Eden Area ROP for making this opportunity possible for me and the other students who participated in this internship program. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Emilio Rodriguez. I attend Tennyson High School, and I'm a part of the SEMA program. This summer, I had the amazing opportunity to intern with Forrester. Forrester is a gleaning organization that's main focus is to repurpose fruit that would otherwise go unused. This summer, I learned and gained plenty from working with Forrester. They taught me some valuable skills that I can take with me and use later on in life. They also gave me the chance to learn and work with them, which was something completely new to me. They gave me a whole new idea of how my future can look like. Before this summer, I was stressed and lost about what to do with my life after high school. But working with Forrester, it opened my eyes to different opportunities I can work and chase after. For that, I'm forever grateful. Thank you all for giving me this amazing opportunity. I appreciate you guys giving me the chance to work with Forrester and letting me speak in front of you guys today. I hope that this program continues so other students can have this wonderful experience as well. Thank you all for listening.
Well, thank you very much. And let's give him another big round of applause. And I'm glad that the superintendent, Dr. Ryman is here, and of course, Superintendent Thorpe is here. And continuing your work, working with us, that whatever you come to us with, we will certainly get on board. And the goal here, right? And I think what you see in this program and with the students, and this was just a small part of a much larger celebration that happened a couple of weeks ago, but it just really shows you the seamless pathway for high school students. Ultimately, you guys are going to be entering careers, going to college, and so when we talk about a education to career pathway, this is it right here. So congratulations, and thank you for participating in the program. Thank you. Next. Okay. Let's see. Then if there are no other comments, I will move on to public comments. And the City Council welcomes comments, including criticism about the policies, procedures, programs, or services of the city, or of the acts or omissions of the City Council. Speakers shall not use threatening, profane, or abusive language which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of a city council. The city is committed to maintaining a workplace free of unlawful harassment, and is mindful that city staff regularly attends city council meetings. Discriminatory statements or conduct that is hostile, intimidating, oppressive, or abusive is disruptive to the meeting and will not be tolerated. And I am instructed by the city clerk to mute and or remove any speaker that does not abide by these policies. With that said, I'd like to turn to public comments. This is reserved for anybody who would like to make a public comment that is not on the agenda. And if there's anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment that is not on the agenda, let me see if there's anybody online. There is one person online that would like to make a public comment. Okay. We have a public comment online, and first is there's only one here, so I'm going to go online first. Ro Aguilar. And you can key up anytime, Ro.
Let's go ahead and start.
Oh, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
I already said a whole sentence, so I didn't know if you could hear me. All right, I'm here tonight to talk about an item that was on the October 12th Planning Commission agenda for a recommendation to the council. So council hasn't seen this yet. Planning Commission has not made their recommendation yet, but I am assuming that it will be coming back through the system because it was continued. It's Eden Village 3 on Moore Drive. It's 1.45 acre site, which the Planning Commission was asked to recommend a zoning change to PD. Currently, there are 2 single-family homes not in great condition, and the PD would allow up to 12 single-family homes. So what the Planning Commission continued this item for a couple of reasons. One of them being if the city residents were getting a fair return on this rezoning. It calls for a zoning change. Making the land more valuable. That was single family to PD. So they're going from these 2 single family homes to 12 single family homes. Now, I do not think the rezoning from 2 to 12 units and just paying in lieu fees is fair to city residents. Because that's what the developer decided, to pay in lieu fees. As we have discussed previously, it's up to them. So I want the city and the Planning Commission, I'm advocating that they require 2 low-income ownership homes plus the 10 market rate homes. We need to start building the affordable home ownership inventory now. What is our inventory in Hayward of affordable, that is low income ownership, single family homes? I don't believe we have that much. The neighborhood, I've driven through it, is mixed use, mixed housing, mixed uses, near amenities. So please, and there's more large lots in the area that could follow this precedent. So I'm concerned about the precedent we set if we just allow 12 market rate homes and more developers come in with more little lots to be zoning change. So I'm asking the council to look at this item, read the Planning Commission minutes, and talk to the developer. Eden Village 3, please let the developer know you want more for all your city residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to turn back here to the chamber, and first speaker is Peggy Guernsey.
Is that on? Oh, good evening, council. I'd like to say I'm also a graduate of the Eden Area ROP Optometric program, and it led me to a very wonderful job, very meaningful as a single mom. And our ROP program that works with Chabot has been a diamond forever. So thank you for supporting it. But I'm here tonight, council, to ask you to join Alameda County in installing cameras to help build safety back into our city. I believe red light cameras and other amenities offered by these systems will help support safety, solve crime, and hopefully help businesses stay and come into Hayward. Cameras can give a clear picture of what happens and help law enforcement solve crimes. The Alameda County Sheriff's Department and Sheriff is in support of the cameras. I've seen them installed in Castro Valley already. And I understand that they're capable of checking speed, and there is a 11-mile grace period of your speed. But I know on Foothill Boulevard, that's 25. I've known people that they've got to at least be doing 40, and I don't want to put our officers in a chase over a red light, because I believe our officers, which were down, I think over 40 officers now or something, but to chase a red light camera runner who may hit and kill somebody in a stolen car, they may get shot doing it. Cameras will help solve those things. I know we had red light cameras before, and there was a disagreement about people getting rear-ended because they stopped at the yellow lights. But I do believe that we should join Alameda County, since they encompass us, in replacing the cameras and using the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Robert McKay.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here speaking under the public, what do they call it, the public comment section regarding speeding and running red lights. Recently, I sent an email to each and every one of you, and specifically, I would like to thank Francisco Zermeno, who answered me. In his email to me, he said that, quote, our traffic department is looking over traffic calming ideas. Then he said, anything I can do for you, which was a question mark. And in Spanish, he said, estoy a la orden, which I guess means order, or I'm considering that as an accommodation to me. So I thank him. So what I have in mind, Councilman Semenya, if you could help me, and this is only a question, and I'll read it to you, that you could answer, not tonight, but later on. What I'd like to know is, how long has this traffic department been looking over for calming ideas? Now, if just recently, why not sooner? Going through red lights and speeding on Mission Boulevard and Foothill Boulevard has been occurring at least since June of 2022. The traffic department should have been looking into this matter long ago. So, question, if the traffic department has been looking for some quite time ago, it sure doesn't appear that it has come up with a calming idea, because everybody that I have been talking to all raises concerns about what is happening. Now, one of my concerns is because of what just recently happened. One of the ladies at our church was driving on Foothill Boulevard, which is only about 2 months ago, and that was in the early evening, and she just passed C Street approaching B, and what happened? Somebody came flying through B through a red light, hit her up front on her car. Fortunately, she was only put in the hospital a short time. Her car, unfortunately, was totaled, and because of how she feels about it now, she doesn't even want to drive. So it is a concern. Now, if any of you have been watching on either Foothill Boulevard or Mission, like I have for quite some time, if you go with the speeding limit on that, you're going to think that something is wrong with your automobile, because everybody is passing you like you're standing still. I know one time, this is several years ago already, when my deceased wife was still alive, I did a stupid thing. Somebody passed me like I was standing still going up Foothill, and I thought, geez, how fast was he going? I caught up to him before I could get up to the top by Castro Valley, and he was going 55 miles an hour with me right behind him. My wife says, are you crazy? You would have been the one that would have gotten the ticket, not him. So I never did that dumb thing again. However,
Mr.
it's
McKay,
happening all
Mr.
the
McKay?
time. If you don't believe me, just
Mr.
go
McKay?
take a look. Now,
Mr.
I even
McKay?
saw something that was so different.
I have to stop you because you're out of time.
Pardon me?
I had to stop you because you have spoken longer than your 3 minutes.
Did I talk my 3 minutes?
You have, but we understand your concern.
I should have known better. You know, I guess that's why I was accused of being a lawyer. You talk too darn much. But I think this is a very important
Absolutely.
issue, Mr. Mayor. And I don't think really, if I may address just for about 30 seconds or so.
I'll give you 15 seconds.
Pardon?
I'll give you 15 seconds.
15? Okay, this is a very serious issue. Speeding is there. You cannot bring back any type of relief if you kill, for instance, a couple kids. Damages won't do it. I've done that. I work for a large law firm. You're not going to satisfy. I'll ask any one of you, if you had kids 5 years old and they got killed, do you think 1 million is going to do it to bring back relief and so forth? It won't. So please, I pray and I please, do something about that speeding. May I make one last comment? It has got so bad today. I was going to Safeway on 2nd Street. I just passed C to B. To my right was a motorcyclist. At B, the light turned red. I stopped. Guess what? You got the answer. The motorcycle went right past through. So I guess they figure if it's good enough for drivers, it's good enough for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I went over 15 seconds.
That was 30 seconds. So, you know, like a good lawyer, you took 30.
Please do.
Thank you. Okay. So seeing no other public comments, I'd like to close public comments.
Mayor Salinas, we have one more via Zoom.
We do have one
TJ.
more, and that is TJ from Hayward Concerned Citizens. So TJ, go right ahead.
I am sorry for sneaking in under the wire. This is TJ with HCC. And picking up where the gentleman left off, I support Peggy Guernsey and Robert McKay on the red light cameras. I could not have said it better. Their words were very well put. But I will add that you may have seen in the news that our governor just approved a trial program of cameras in Oakland, San Francisco, and 3 cities in Southern California, I believe. Let's pay attention to the outcomes on that. Perhaps Gavin Newsom will expand the program to Hayward if our leaders can help advocate for that. We certainly have good reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And then seeing no more public comments online, nor here in the chamber, I'd like to move on to city manager's comments.
Thank you, Mayor. If we can pull up the slide first. So I wanted to highlight for our community that the city's draft climate action plan is online and now available for public review. The updated climate action plan provides a roadmap to achieving the council adopted goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 55% by 2030. You can see the QR codes on the screen. The green QR code is, you can scan that to get a link to all of the draft documents related to the climate action plan for review. And then if you scan the QR code on the right, there is a community workshop to present the draft climate action plan on Zoom, scheduled for Monday, October 30th at 6:30 p.m. with city staff. And you can also send any comments or questions via email to environment@hayward-ca.gov. So I wanted to share that information with the community. And then secondly, I think hopefully you've seen, I've seen a lot of messages about this event. The library's annual Trunk or Treat event will return this Saturday, October 28th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Heritage Plaza. This year, the library is partnering with Hayward Promise Neighborhoods to recognize their 12 years of service to the community and the expansion of the program through another 5-year grant cycle to the downtown Hayward area. Attendees are encouraged to come in costume to Trunk or Treat. And the celebration will be much bigger than in previous years. In addition to the usual arts, crafts, music, and dance performance, along with candy and book giveaways, there will be a career fair, STEM activities, a rock climbing wall, car show, resource information from partner agencies, free food, and much more. Bay Area blues musician Aki Kumar will make a special appearance from 12:30 to 2 p.m. to entertain attendees with his singing, virtuoso harmonica playing, and his upbeat blend of blues and Bollywood that are sure to get people dancing. Please note that in addition to the normal closure of Watkins for the farmers market on Saturday, Watkins Street will also be closed between C and D streets. C Street between the library and Heritage Plaza will also be blocked off to traffic. AC Transit will continue services, but vehicles will detour along Atherton Avenue during the closure. So I know the library staff was out hand delivering notices to all the residents in the neighborhood. So I'm very excited for this event this weekend and hope you will all join us. Thank you, Mayor. Those are my comments.
Did you say that it was required that council members wear costumes on Saturday?
Yes. Every council member should wear a costume. Yes.
Requirement.
Okay.
And did I also hear that council members will be singing in Halloween spirit song?
I believe that there is a musician who will be sure to get people dancing. So I expect to be there with all of you dancing on Saturday.
Nice. Okay. Got it. Thank you. I'd like to move on to the action items. We have our consent calendar, and I didn't get anybody who wanted to pull anything from. Well, I do see apparently Councilmember George Syrup wants to make a comment.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a small amendment to the minutes that was sent out to the council. So when the minutes are moved, City Clerk, will it include that amendment? Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify. And then for item 3, just a question. The report said there was a number of vacancies in the Public Works Department. I was curious what our hiring strategy is for that. Are we being, it seemed like there was a lot of vacancies that was concerning to read about, and I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
We have had, particularly in transportation engineering, it's been one of the most challenging divisions in the city, I think, other than the police department, in which to fill positions. We did recently fill a senior transportation engineer and I believe one other position. So that will help dramatically. But we have been augmenting. We've had several staff who've actually left city to go work for a consulting firm. And then we've had to hire the consulting firm to have that staff person come back and help us with projects. So we are continuing to look at recruitment strategies, but transportation engineering is one that is particularly challenging. So, but we have been able, I think, to hire 2 of the 5 positions.
Great. Thank you for that update. And then on item 5, I'm happy to see that we're replacing the items that were taken from the emergency services shelter. I was curious, is there going to be improved security around those items so we can prevent any kind of theft in the future?
That was sort of a unique circumstance and event. And now there was a user in the center. Anyway, that has been rectified and it shouldn't be an issue moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion. Or actually, before I entertain a motion, entertain a motion, right? Yeah, because when I open for public comment, right?
And Mayor, we don't have any requests.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. So entertain a motion.
I'll move the items on the consent calendar, Mayor.
Moved by Councilmember Bonilla. Seconded by Councilmember Goldstein. And I think what we're going to try to do, at least with the consent calendar, is we're going to see if the voting on the iPad works. And let's see if it works.
That's correct, Mayor. Do you see the option to vote or? No?
I see motion.
Okay. Just
And then my screen has an eject button.
okay. Well, maybe we'll try it again next time. So I'll go ahead and call the roll.
Okay.
So let me just go ahead and Councilmember Andrews. Aye. Councilmember Bonilla.
Aye.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Roach.
Aye.
Councilmember Syrup.
Yes.
Councilmember Cermeño.
Yes.
Mayor Salinas.
Yes, and it unanimously passes. Okay, moving on to work session. Moving on to item number 6, WS 23-041. This is the Hayward Food Action Plan. Review and discuss findings and staff's proposed next steps regarding the Hayward Food Action Plan. And I believe this report is going to come to us by way of Assistant City Manager Regina Youngblood.
And I think I will take it over from her.
And by way of Ms. Mary Thomas.
Yes, good evening, Mary Thomas. We'll go ahead and make this presentation about our food action plan.
Thank you. Thank you, Regina. Appreciate that. And we have a slideshow. I'm not, do I? Okay.
Mary, go ahead and hit escape and then your slide will be at the bottom. Go ahead and open it up. And then Nick will send it to the big screen and Zoom.
Thanks so much.
You.
Thanks so much, Geraldine. And slideshow. Thank you all for sticking with us.
And not that I'm counting, but does that say 12 slides at the top?
It does say 12 slides. So we're going to be quick. We know there's quite a few items on the agenda, and I know you like the 5 slides. There's mostly pictures, and we'll be brief. And I am joined for presenting tonight with Emily Huang, who did a lot of work on this. I want to make sure that she is online presenting. So Emily, if you just want to say hi, so we can make sure that your audio is working. Great. Okay. Your audio is working great.
Awesome.
And so just to give, since many of you are new since we started this work, just to give you some very brief context, and this is all in the staff report. If anyone in the audience wants to read more about this, we're going to go quite quickly. The city jumped in to provide food distribution during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we provided over 1.7 million pounds of food to over 180,000 people over the pandemic. And so during that collaboration, we did that in collaboration with Chabot College and HARD. We met a lot of different partners who expressed a desire to see more coordination around the food systems in Hayward, specifically food access, as well as people who are interested in growing their own food and have sort of using food as wellness and recreational activities. So we received, that was part of the strategic roadmap from the previous council. To work on that topic, we received a grant from the Stepsky Foundation. We accepted that grant a year ago, and we have done a year's worth of work convening collaboration around this. And so we're here to present kind of what we discovered and specific actions that we suggest or that we're proposing for the city continue to do. Emily Wong really did the majority of work on this. She was a management fellow when we started. She has now been promoted to a management analyst in the community services division. Congratulations to her. And then Javier Custer also helped us with this project a lot. So I'm going to hand it over to Emily to present most of this.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you for the introduction, and now I'll set the scene for council and what we've been able to achieve in this last year. As the convener of this project, the city sought to bring together Hayward organizations and service providers to build connections and organize partnerships. Along with the Hayward-based organizations, we also invited agencies, including Stop Waste and Alameda County Community Food Bank, who are responsible for various food-related work across cities. Throughout this process, the goal was to collaborate with Hayward community organizations to perform an assessment of top assets and gaps in services, identify opportunities for partnership, and to gather partner insight and recommendations for next steps. As we're wrapping up, we're here to present what we've done during the Food Action Plan process and to elicit feedback from council on any further staff direction related to this work. Like I had mentioned, one of our top goals through this process was to create an environment for partners to strengthen their relationships and to learn. An example of this is that the city organized a partner retreat to Santa Cruz, where we toured the Homeless Garden Project and UC Santa Cruz's Center for Agroecology to gain inspiration on addressing issues like homelessness and food insecurity through sustainable and holistic models. Not only were we able to learn from successful examples, we also hosted meeting spaces for partners through work group sessions throughout the year so they could share resources and challenges with one another. In these work groups, we also conducted the assessment of assets and gaps in Hayward related to food systems, which we'll touch on in later slides. And this portion of the work built a foundation for our partners to collaborate, share ideas and resources, and explore issues that they wouldn't have done alone. And as a result from these meetings, we were able to do the following, including having the pleasure to work with partners and create opportunities for collaboration, like creating a South Hayward Farmers Market interest survey and outreach, and doing that with Eden Youth and Family Services and Agricultural Institute of Marin. This survey gathered over 1,400 responses thanks to the work of Eden Youth and Family Center and AIM, and gained important insight for what needs to occur for a successful market in South Hayward. We also had the opportunity to host an internship program with HUSD Eden Area ROP for Sturgeon Mills College, which you got to learn about earlier in today's council meeting. And we also got to host 18 Chabot and CSU East Bay interns as student researchers to collect local data that was identified as needed by our partners, which we can learn more about in the next slide. At the beginning of this process, we polled our partners to identify the top barriers to addressing food insecurity, including coordinating hours of distribution, improving access to culturally relevant foods, and improving language access to assistance. Our student researchers were able to visit food distribution sites in Hayward to collect information around client food demographics and as well as their preferences. They also performed street vendor interviews, which were shared with the planning department in the creation of the street vendor ordinance. And lastly, student researchers collected and refined information around the food distribution sites in and around Hayward, which we can see in the next slide. With the help of student researchers at CSU East Bay and our IT department, we developed a food distribution map that will be published on the city's webpage for the public to access. This was identified as a need among partners and the community to have a landing page for more local information on where to find and access food. In addition to this work, city staff also connected with organizations to bring partners out of their offices and to learn from our own backyard. This included visiting Eden Area ROP's garden, and where we learned how they use their garden as a central point of education to connect their students to lessons related to construction, medicine, and cooking. We also got to go to visit Dig Deep Farms and learn about their models in hosting a second chance employment program to put on food recovery programming, as well as to learn about their food entrepreneurship program. We also got to go to Alicia's Tamales factory to do a tour and learned about how she grew her business from selling tamales on the street to having her very own enterprise based in Hayward. Now that we've covered the work that we've done in this past year, we can do an overview of assets, gaps, and partner priorities. In our partner discussions, we found that organizations were proud of the existing assets that we have in Hayward, and we're more than ready to have these discussions. Amongst the people, we know that Hayward is diverse and its community has a wealth of knowledge in agricultural practices. We also are fortunate to be in the Bay Area, where there is a large pool of professionals that are dedicated to this kind of work. Location-wise, as a former agricultural land, Hayward is home to fertile, low-pest populations, and we are also fortunate to have the industry sector in our backyard. We are home to a handful of community-based projects that nurture food systems work, as we have described in the last slides. And network-wise, community-based organizations have developed their own networks to increase food recovery. In 2022, Hayward Food Recovery Organizations put Hayward on the map and ranked second in the county in total pounds recovered out of 17 jurisdictions, reporting over 2 million pounds of recovered food. Lastly, one of the most important details is that organizations are more than willing to collaborate across sectors. These assets are something to be proud of. And now that we've covered these assets, we can discuss partner identified gaps in our food system. Key gaps that were brought up by partners include the infrastructure or lack of, in terms of as the demand for food increases, as identified by our partners, there is a lack of capacity to expand those services sustainably. Providers have also mentioned the struggle to keep up with rapid client demographic changes, not only adjusting the type of foods that are needed to meet these client demographic changes, but also making sure that translation services and other administrative work is done to make sure that these populations have access to these resources. We've also been reached out to a few times in terms of trying to find warehouse locations for partners, and found that warehouse locations with refrigeration is actually very limited in the area. And related to programming, we've heard that there's little space for small food entrepreneurs to support their business growth, and that was identified as a gap, as well as educational programming like Project Eats, which was introduced by the County Department of Education. However, that was ceased and there's little to no support to continue this work. However, we've seen that there are many great programs that come out of this type of work, like the Tennyson High School Farm and their Farm to Fork pathway. And despite having fertile land, community members have expressed barriers to access land for growing. And also, if we look at the coordination side, partners have expressed a need for more centralized coordination around food recovery, especially as a result of SB 1383 that began enforcement in January 2022. Many food businesses are unaware of this policy change, and can potentially endure fines for not following it properly. On the food recovery side, once businesses catch on to this new policy change, there will be a high demand in food recycling, which businesses are legally required to donate as much food as they have left over. And to concluding the gaps, there is a lack of centralized coordination of resource sharing, which we can touch on in the next slide. So the city facilitated a workshop to distill the top 3 main priorities from partners on topics related to food action. The first one is funding and staff report around food recovery programming. Environmental Services is coming to the council with a draft climate action plan, which includes actions to establish an edible food recovery program and explore funding opportunities to increase the circular food economy. In terms of they also have expressed that having this ongoing space to convene and resource share was very valuable. And so while the city is transitioning out of being that convener role for this planning grant, Feed Hayward has offered to host partner resource meetings at least quarterly. And lastly, partners have really enjoyed this city support through this process, and they would more than welcome long-term city support, and the city is willing to explore funding opportunities within its current scope of work and is always available to offer letters of support to partners. And the city also plans to create a resource page for food resources that will be hosted on the city's website. So we've been able to coordinate the food action plan as a result of council's dedication towards climate, building economy, and dedication to community safety and wellness. And so I thank you for the opportunity to work on this and bring so many people into the conversation. Thank you for your attention, and I will pass it along to Mary Thomas to go over the next steps for the city.
Thank you. So thanks, Emily, so much. So we tried to keep that short. That was a summary of a year's worth of work. We thank all the partners. There's some here tonight who participated in this. There's a lot of partners who have identified their own actions based on this work and will be seeking grant funding or their own sources of funding. We are not bringing those up tonight. What we're here to do is to go over what staff is proposing that the city stay involved with moving forward. And so I'm going to go over 9 different things. I will be very brief. If you have questions, please ask them in question and standpoint. The first slide here, these are activities that are funded through existing sources. We just want to make sure you're aware of them to make sure that this is the right thing, like sort of the right area for us to be spending our staff resources on. One is to continue the farmers market feasibility study for South Hayward. We had the survey results. We want to continue that. 2, we have a wonderful seed lending library program. And so that has become way more active after the pandemic. They're offering courses in person. They'll be offering courses with the Alameda County Master Gardeners this spring. So that will continue. We will continue to support food access organizations through our annual CDGB process, our community agency funding process, and as well as technical support. We have the fire department is leading an emergency planning effort right now. And so food distribution is a big part of that emergency planning, as we saw during the pandemic. And then finally, we recently heard that the Alameda County Resource Conservation District, and for everyone here, conservation districts were established after the Dust Bowl to sort of guard the nation's soil. And so we have one in Alameda County, and they recently received a grant and had asked, because of this food action plan, wants Hayward as well as Oakland to be the model cities. They want to develop sample land leases to have public land be available for agricultural and gardening and really streamline that process. So we will be participating in that unless you tell us otherwise. The second slide are items that are unfunded, or they are currently funded, but they will be unfunded after this fiscal year. And so I'm just going to go through these. And for these ones, we're seeking direction on we're not seeking you to tell us whether or not we should fund these tonight. What we're seeking direction on is if you want us to keep working on these items and exploring them, then we would bring to you the funding proposals either at the mid-year budget or at the fiscal year budget. And you can, consider them at that time as well. But if you also could direct us to say, this is not something that we think the city should pursue at this moment. So one of them is we, as part of this work, realized that there is a plot of land that the city owns that the Prospect Hill Neighborhood Association has been gardening for many, many years, and we did not officially have a lease with them. And so we formalized that lease, and part of that formality, we have offered about $14,000 annually in services to clear out brush that goes down to the San Lorenzo Creek to make sure that it's attractive for the Lincoln Landing side. And so that we have funding through this fiscal year for that, but we don't have funding moving forward. We also, there's been, as we mentioned, one of the gaps identified as wanting to have more entrepreneurial support for small businesses in the restaurant or food industry. There's a potential space at the Future Stack Center for this, but we do not have an identified provider. And so we have an opportunity to do kind of an entrepreneurship hub business plan. And so if you're interested in us pursuing that, we could bring that as a mid-year item, which is about $40K. Another one would be to continue the Learn and Earn summer internship program. We have funding for this. That's the one that you heard about earlier today. We have funding for this year, but not years moving forward. And then finally, there was a proposal that was put on the table by DSAL, the Deputy Sheriff's Activities League, Daily Bull, and TriSed to increase food recovery activities in Hayward. The staff is still analyzing this proposal and working with them. This is an estimated $300,000 one time for a one-year pilot. And so if council is interested in us continuing to pursue that, we could come back with a further report on that. So that was a lot to throw at you. I am happy to take questions now.
Thank you. This is a work session, so I'm going to go to public comment first, and then I'll return to the dais for questions and comments and suggestions. And I believe we do have, let me see, I think, yeah, I believe we had one speaker in the audience, and that is the often imitated but never duplicated, the executive director of TriSed, Jason Toro.
I feel like I should get an applause. Am I hot here? There we go. All right. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. My name is Jason Toro, and I'm the CEO of TriSed Community Recycling. As you know, 1 in 5 people in Alameda County are food insecure. That equates to many, many thousands in the city of Hayward alone. And as was mentioned in the amazing report that Emily and staff put together, the state has recently enacted SB 1383, which in part mandates that cities divert at least 20% of edible food away from landfill and to food insecure people. So TriSed, with the partners mentioned, has developed a turnkey proposal to help the city of Hayward be a trailblazer in food recovery and also be in compliance with state regulations. One thing that came to light during that presentation is that there is a need for coordination and infrastructure as we move forward with food recovery and specifically in meeting our compliance issues around SB 1383. That is exactly what we're offering with this proposal. So we're offering coordination, infrastructure, and data collection. TriSed has provided recycling and waste diversion services for over 32 years in the city of Hayward. Our mission is to reduce the waste stream and provide second chance job opportunities for individuals impacted by incarceration. With the implementation of SB 1383, it is only natural that TriSed utilize our 4+ decades of experience to divert edible food from the waste stream. We are the ideal partner to assume responsibility over the food recovery network that DSAL has built while staying true to its mission of providing jobs and training for individuals coming home after a period of incarceration. These are quality union jobs with benefits, competitive pay, and pensions. We have in-house expertise to manage and maintain a fleet of food recovery vehicles. We have decades of experience running routes efficiently and cost effectively. We have the infrastructure to manage sophisticated food recovery operations while partnering with well-established leaders in the food recovery industry, such as Patty Iyer with Daily Bowl. We have long-established partnerships with building opportunities for self-sufficiency, BOSS, which would be operating the food recovery hub, and This food would be prepped for us to then redistribute to food insecure residents in Hayward. Our turnkey operation will allow Hayward to be a trailblazer in addressing SB 1383 compliance and promoting the triple bottom line of environmentally sustainable practices for local food generating businesses, providing quality second chance job opportunities, and providing quality food for thousands of food insecure residents in Hayward. Thank you.
And you had 14 seconds. Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? I don't see any. Let me see if there's anyone online. Hold on. For some reason, that's not popping. Oh, oops. Okay, I see 5 hands up. And so I'll start with Hillary Bass.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, thank you so much for having this topic come up tonight. I'm Hillary Bass. I work for the Alameda County Sheriff's Office and oversee our nonprofit Deputy Sheriff's Activities League, or DSAL. Over the last 20 years, we have been innovating in sort of from the public safety lens around how to reduce the criminogenic factors in our mostly unincorporated areas. We started with, athletics. We're partnering with Hayward Promise Neighborhood very proudly. But we, in 2010, began working on the food economy as a way to interrupt cycles of recidivism by investing in local economic opportunities in the food system. So we started with Dig Deep Farms, and that has led to, over the last 12 years, building out various pieces of this food economy. We now have a food hub that some of you have visited up on Fairmont Drive. And thanks to the late Supervisor Wilma Chan and also the late Supervisor Richard Valle, who deeply invested in our initiatives to create, as Jason said, second chance workforce development opportunities that support the reduction in food insecurity and also climate impacts for local regenerative farming. We've made it to this point today where we really have articulated a hyperlocal food system. Food recovery is one of those really important pieces. And at this stage, DSAL's board of directors and the sheriff's office are looking to really revert back to just doing athletics and shift the food system work to other partners like TriSed. And especially in homage to Supervisor Valle and what he created there, and our deep partnership with La Familia, where where we met Jason originally. We want to put Hayward on the map as investing in food recovery as a leader in organizing it under TriSed, where DSAL's current food recovery team will be shifted to their operations to demonstrate what it looks like to comply with this law, support the small businesses who are going to be held accountable to compliance with this law, report back to you, to the state, and anyone else who's interested about how many millions of pounds of food are being recovered, how many thousands of people are being served and delivered to with the logistics system. And between what DSAL has created and what TriSed knows how to do best, we think, and also bringing in partners like Patty, who is what I call the godfather of food recovery, we know that we can put Hayward on the map as leading this county in food recovery compliance.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next caller is Julio Contreras.
Hola, buenas noches, City Council folks. My name is Julio Contreras. I was born and raised in Hayward. I would have loved to have joined you in person, but I was with my son at his football practice at Hayward High, which is the high school of farmers. I am calling today to relay quite a bit of information about my background and also just recommendations of my work with this food action plan. I do want to give a shout out and special thanks to Mary Thomas, to Emily, to Javier, and to everyone else, all the partners that worked on this food action plan. It was a long process, but it was very productive and it was really great. And I think overall, I just wanted to share that with my experience in the area, which has been pretty much my whole life with the Hayward Community Garden, and with my family's business of Joe's Honey, doing beekeeping. I am excited about what's happening with the urban ag movement picking up again. I say again because there's been ebbs and flows. There's been periods of time where it would have been great if the county and if the city of Hayward would have invested in this in the past, but it didn't. But hey, we're here now. And I think the most important thing that I want to advocate for is for a food policy council and for a group of people and for a collaborative group of organizations that can best advise and best be involved in the future activities that the city of Hayward is looking at and looking at investing, so that the process can be inclusive, the process can be equitable, and so that there can be better decision-making process in any further funding, especially like future steps in this. And yes, the food action plan like provides a really good foundation for it, but it would be great if the people can decide, if the residents from the city of Hayward, if partners from city of Hayward, if we could actively all play a role in this process, rather than proposals coming up in the city council. Y'all, yes, I trust y'all decision-making power, but at the same time, it would be great if people who have been doing this work for many years, if youth especially, who are just learning about this, can participate more. I think I just also want to just add that I agree with the relationship that is being formed with the RCD. I've done work with the RCD in the past, and they do great work. Also, just want to push the council to continue working with other institutions like UC Cooperative Extension, and other organizations that have been doing this work for a year and can just provide good guidance. And yeah, there's a lot more I want to add, but I think I'll just leave it at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Director Sarah Lamnan.
Good evening, everybody. It's a delight to be with you all. And I wanted to make sure that there was a huge shout out, which has already been done, but I'm going to add to it. Thank you so much, Mary and Emily and Julio, and for creating such an inclusive space. The partnerships and the collaboration that came out of this work were truly remarkable. And I appreciate all of the expertise that went into creating the work that you've just seen. And I urge you, as you deliberate this evening and provide some direction, to continue that collaborative energy. I'll pick up on what Julio just was talking about, that there is profound expertise throughout our community, through partnerships that already serve our community. And so as we look at things like how do we really take on food recovery as a city, that needs to be done in a continue with that collaborative spirit and that building on the expertise of our community. So there needs to be a lot more conversation about that. The changes in decel and the changes in the all-in eats, which weren't discussed tonight, but that is also happening, all came out really right before this came to you. And so that's not to throw blame on anybody, because it's such a quickly evolving thing that there really hasn't been the time to do the kind of thoughtful community collaboration that went into this whole year-long process. And so I ask you not to narrow in on one approach to the food recovery solution this evening, but that those conversations still need to be convened. Stop Waste already has a mechanism to convene those conversations. I urge the city, and of course HARD, to be part of those conversations, as well as we said, all of the expertise that's already in the community that has been doing food recovery work for many, many years now. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Moving on to, and let's see, I want to make sure I pronounce this right. Is it Etsub Senshaw from Alameda County, DSouth?
Yes, this is Etsu. Thank you.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. My name is Etsu Sencha, and I'm the Food Recovery Manager at ACD Cells Dig Deep Farms Food Hub, where our food recovery programs aim and goal is to tackle food insecurity and promote healthy eating habits within our communities. I would just like to highlight a few things. So closing out the past fiscal year, we have recovered and redistributed over 1.2 million pounds back into our communities. And currently for the 2023 calendar year, we have recovered and redistributed over 850K pounds back into our communities. We have 95 donors and producers, 52 recipient partner organizations, which adds up to 146 partner organizations currently ranging from school districts, grocery stores, small food businesses, food centers, farmers markets, hospitals, wholesale produce markets, food banks, our gleaners, and more that will serve our recipient organizations, which are affordable low-income housing complexes, senior housing complexes, senior care centers, recreation centers, community centers, school events, schools, unsheltered encampments, food kitchens, which serve the community, and more. On average, we serve roughly 30 to 40K families a month, which means 360K families roughly a year. We have created food recovery systems through our network, spreadsheets, and electronic forms to store and pull data instantly pertaining to weights, list of items, city, zip code, congressional districts, supervisory districts, numbers of families served, numbers of individuals served, numbers of individuals in those families, through each delivery and pickup to stay in total compliance with Senate Bill 1383, as well as reporting data to all of our donors such as Target, Cardenas Markets, Body Armor, Trader Joe's, Lucky's, Kaiser Hospitals, Daily Bowl, our gleaners, and more. In our view, we have created a circular food economy, which within our current limits and county, meaning that all food is brought to our hub, sorted through, packaged, and redistributed immediately or stored within our refrigerated storage until they are scheduled to be redistributed within the immediate next few days. And all of the food that was not recoverable is sent to our local farmers or picked up at our hub through our local farmers for livestock feed, thus creating a circular food economy. Not only have we created a circular food economy, but we are also tackling the climate change crisis by means of working through our partner organizations to create climate efficient routes to work within our immediate cities and our districts, thus reducing gas emissions, thus creating a healthier and greener community. I would also like to note that in these tough times of inflation, food insecurity within a large portion of Hayward and our county, paycheck to paycheck struggles, and a massive crime increase through our cities and county. We strongly believe and have heard directly from our members of our community that our food recovery program, as well as food recovery programs throughout the county, is one massive step in lowering crime rates.
Mr. Senshaw, Mr.
Yes.
Senshaw, I
Yes.
apologize, but you are out of time.
May I have 15 more seconds, sir?
I'll give you 15 seconds. How's that?
Yes, sir. Thank you. And I would just like to also lastly share that the issue with continuing this unbelievably important work for the betterment of our communities is creating sustainability and funds, which will employ our drivers, warehouse staff, vehicles, storage, and more. And by doing that, we will be lowering crime rates as well as lowering the unemployment rates. And we really need funds to keep these things going for the betterment of our communities. And we also serve just this year alone, 20K families in the city of Hayward. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Our next caller is Yennefer.
Hi, City Council. My name is Yennefer Origel Hernandez. I am a native and current Hayward resident and a member of the Developing Feed Hayward Community Organization. As noted in Emily's presentation, there is a gap in the infrastructure, programming, and coordination to ensure food security in our city. on a request from my city council to allocate funding for initiatives and priorities presented by the community that support our needs, like making sure that there is food recovery and food distributions resources made available, providing access to healthy and affordable foods, and lastly, also funding and creating opportunities to grow and sell local produce, like supporting the South Hayward Farmers Market. Thank you for serving and making sure that food is accessible to our community. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Let's see, I don't see anyone else online, and I don't have any cards here. So I'd like to close public comment and return up here. And hold on. Our first commenter is Councilmember Zermeño.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Emily, for a good report. This is very important to us. I have 3 questions. Let's see. Ugly food from supermarkets, are they included in this collection?
Yes, they would be, if they are not purchased and they're still usable, they could be part of a food recovery program.
Okay, so that's something that every supermarket throws away all the ugly food. Let's see. Collecting food that is unsold from restaurants. I'm thinking Panera Bread. I'm thinking all these other folks. Is that something that's included also?
Yeah, so there's the SB 1383 requires there's a much more complicated explanation about tier 1 and tier 2 producers that I won't be able to answer all of the different nuances to, but they're requiring that that the businesses that create food, I shouldn't say waste because it's still edible, that they figure out how to recover that food and get it to people that can use it. And that is the onus is on them. And that's a state mandate at this point. And so I think that's a lot of what the conversation has been about in the last. And so, yes, restaurants are part of that.
Oh, okay. All right. They're doing this in France. They're requiring all restaurants to donate the food to folks who are.
And in California. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do that. All right. And then my last one. Have we thought of finding areas where a fruit tree will not cause a liability to the city and start planting fruit trees? And I mentioned this because at Chabot, I planted probably about 10 fruit trees. And a couple of years ago, there were a couple of students who were couch surfers. We have many students at Chabot who I have difficult time. They're picking figs off of the fig tree that I planted. And says, so you guys okay? Hey, listen, we haven't eaten all day. Is this okay? So that's perhaps finding the need and filling it. So maybe start looking, if you have not, what particular areas could we plant a fruit tree without it causing liability? I know that the cities don't like it because if there's a rotten apple on the street and somebody slips on it, then they're going to sue the city. But that's not the case at Chabot because I'm planting them in areas where there are no sidewalks. So I think we could do that. All right. And then as far as the 9 particular items, I say yes on all of them. I think that's tremendous. This is a very good program. I mean, 1 out of 5 people have problems, and that's something that we need to work on. And I think this will go a long ways to do it. Working with stopwaste.org is excellent. And then, of course, TriSaid, and then making sure that 1383 gets fulfilled. So without them penalizing us. So thank you very much. Good work.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the great report. And just on a administrative level, I actually enjoyed the highlights, the attachments. I thought it was very well presented. One question I had was about the learn to earn? What is
Learn and earn. So you're
Learn
learning
and-
and earning at the same time.
Learn
Yes.
and earn. Yes. How is it advertised for students to learn about this opportunity?
So that's 2 of the individuals here tonight, Veronica Ortiz and Norma. They are in charge of the Career Pathways program at HUSD. And so they are the one who's advertised it to all HSD students and allow them to apply. in this case, this was the inaugural year. And so I think that the students who expressed interest automatically got in. But I think if there were more, if we continued to do it, there might be some sort of an application process if we had limitations.
And how do we get the information to students that are not just in HUSD, other students that are in Hayward?
Yeah, in this particular case, it was a program through HSD with the partnership with ROP and other partners like Forester.org. And so the mechanism to pay them is through that. And so I'm not sure if we could offer it outside, but we can absolutely ask if that's something that you want to explore.
Okay, yeah. And then also wanted to know, was the Youth Commission involved in learning about these kinds of programs?
No, we're not. We did, let the Youth Commission know that we were doing this work. The new Youth Commission that was recently sworn is not aware of this. We could give them a presentation.
Okay, so, but they were aware of it in the previous.
Yeah, they were aware that the
Okay.
work was occurring. Yeah.
Okay, great. And there's a new grocery store that's coming. I'm assuming they'll be part of this program too because of the legislation.
Yes, all grocery stores they're tier 1 producers, so they do have to fulfill those requirements to find locations to distribute their food.
Okay, and then I saw on the chart there was a food services bucket in tier 1. How does that work with ghost kitchens? Did I miss that?
Sorry, say one more time.
With ghost kitchens, how does that work? Given that we're having a food hall that's coming, are they under individual?
Yeah,
restaurants?
I will have to talk to our economic development environmental service teams and get back to you on that one. I don't know the answer to that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Mary.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you, Emily.
it may be that it's a restaurant facility. It would be the whole entire facility that would be in charge of that. But it just depends on how many seats they have within the facility.
How many what they have in it?
How many like people that they serve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because that potentially, if they're sharing a food hall and they're splitting the seats, I can see that being an issue, and we're not recovering food there necessarily if there's limited seats for, I don't know how many vendors are in that food hall, but it seems like there's going to be a lot with very few seats.
Yeah, I think you're thinking about some of the same things that came up during this process, which is that the state enacted this legislation and there's a lot of requirements associated with it, and the industry in which to recover that food and redistribute it to people who need it is still forming. And so there's a lot to be thought through.
And then we just talked about street vending. I wanted to know, how can we connect those who will be contacted with our new ordinance? Is there any way we can have some connections, any kind of synergy that can happen with these types of programs?
Yeah, and I'll let Emily speak specifically to the one group that we connected to, and Javier Castro is integral in this. So we, through the outreach, there are a few different community-based organizations that do specific entrepreneurship training for that. Emily, what's the name of the main?
Centro Community Partners.
Yes, Centro Community Partners. They have provided workshops at our library, but that's one of the ideas, if we did an entrepreneurship hub, to invite partners like that to provide classes and trainings and one-on-one support.
Okay. I just end with a comment. I think you all did a very good job on this. Also wanted to just highlight that the pandemic really exposed how fragile our systems are and how many people were in need during that time, and food distribution was very important. And it's just heartening to hear that you all are looking at something that's going to be long-term to address food insecurity. And it's a shame that we're in the Bay Area. We have some of the richest people in the world, yet we're experiencing this food insecurity. It doesn't make sense to me, but I'm glad someone is really trying to address it. And I'm glad that this law came about so we can not only help our residents, but also our planet. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Roach.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mary and Emily. It was really exciting to see this plan and everything that went into it. I really appreciate that. And it makes me proud of the city and all of our partnering organizations that did come together during COVID and were able to figure out a way to get people fed. So thank you for all of that. I was wondering, one of the things that I noticed during COVID, because we went to the schools, like there was so much food in some areas and giveaway areas, and they were just giving it out to friends and neighbors because there was so much food. And then there's a scarcity at other locations. So I can see the need for some sort of almost like a dispatch center of, of all the different partnering agencies. So when some areas are having a deficit, other areas can pick up. So I really like the idea. I think the caller called it a food policy council or like a dispatch center, something. And I don't know if the city's the right place to do it, but it reminded me of a few weeks ago, we had the bike, micromobility. Thank you. And we talked about creating like a clearinghouse online for bike rebates. Well, it seems like it would be a great idea if at a minimum, we had like a clearinghouse of all of the different food, providers around the city and how to get access to them, where they are and what kind of, program it is. I mean, at a minimum, in order for people to know that there's one space they can go to, and we'd keep that up, and maybe that would be in collaboration with some of the other organizations. But because I wrote down that it's often food is a question of access, knowledge, and money. And I mean, so many of these organizations are doing great work, but they don't have consistent funding. If we know in a community it's working really well, but they just aren't getting enough resources to buy the food that they need, that's a gap we should look to help fill, or I don't know. So I love the idea of some sort of joint effort somewhere. I mean, I think the slide said we were talking, it was Feed Hayward. Yeah, was offering to host quarterly meetings, but yeah, maybe at those meetings they can discuss like how to create this sort of centralized thing just for Hayward for now. So that was my thoughts there. And then I was thinking, to the point of the ghost kitchen, maybe we could do like a ghost refrigeration warehouse somewhere, because you mentioned in the presentation that refrigeration is a problem. And I've heard that. I remember one of the nonprofits I worked at, their refrigeration in the kitchen was constantly used by other agencies, and it was always full. So that would be interesting to see if we could have multiple agencies come together, strategically located sites in order to provide joint refrigeration. Let's see, the other thing I was thinking is, I think you also mentioned that there's sort of a scarcity of planting, of where to plant, so people that are interested in actually growing food to provide. And I think I've talked about this on HLEC, but all the school sites in Hayward have gardens. None of them are properly gardened. And the schools would love it if the community was coming in order to actually access that space. I mean, I tried starting a garden at our school. I never got parents that were engaged. The staff and faculty don't have the long-term interest in it. And I mean, it would just be, they're often pretty big plots of land in order to be able to use little micro growing areas around the city. And I would encourage the people that are interested in teaching people how to grow to maybe coordinate with HUSD or, the local school sites to do that. And I know I've talked to Hart about this as well. So there might be some collaboration there going forward. Let's see, what else do let's see. I really like the map. That's a start. And I think that could go on our clearinghouse website if we were to do something like that. So people get access. And then the other question I had was on the 1383, and the question, we had the presentation from TriSed. Are we looking for a vendor to do this? I mean, what is our role in, like you said, the restaurants are responsible for making, it's on them to make sure they're properly, distributing their excess food. What's on the city on 1383?
The law is it's not super clear what is responsible for different because Stop Waste is taking some of the government responsibilities around some of the tracking and some of the eventual enforcement. In terms of coordination, there's some sort of implied that maybe cities will, but in terms of how the state would enforce that, it's not necessarily clear. Emily, if you want to jump in with anything, I think it might, if you guys are interested, maybe having a refresher on the 1383 requirements, and that might come with the climate action plan. Maybe there can be a specific update on that, because that seems like a a topic that could use more explanation. And I am honestly not the in-house expert. That would be our environmental services team.
Yeah,
Emily, I
maybe
don't know.
we can, yeah, maybe we can do that one. later
Yeah, we can,
because,
I can
yeah.
definitely share that with them and say that as part of the climate action plan, you guys would like a really more informative refresher on that particular law.
Yeah, just so we can understand me, because I can see why you don't want all the restaurants driving everywhere to go to drop all this stuff off. So it would be great to have one source that was, picking
Mhm.
everything up.
Yeah.
But yes, a refresher on that might be helpful in order to understand,
Great.
how
Yes.
we want to best achieve that. And then I'll see, so sorry, Mary, my last comment is on the recommendations. I agree. The first 5, I think the South Hayward Farmers Market is a great idea, and I really want to see us move forward with that. I think that's really needed. The seed lending library is awesome. My husband uses it, and that's been really helpful. And so I am supportive of the first 5. And the second slide, I think the Hazel Garden, the community garden there, I think that's really important, especially with Lincoln Landing coming on board, and maybe Maple and May will come on board, Maple and Maine. That's a lot of people living in dense housing without a lot of outdoor space, and Hazel Garden is right behind there. And I know, they have planter boxes for people to come and plant. I think they could have more there. I think that is a great, resource for the community for us to continue somehow. It's a nice big open space. Like I said, it goes down to the creek. I think what we can do to support them helps that whole community right there. So I do think that's important. And then the entrepreneurship hub of the stack. I think for me, I don't know when the stack's going to get built. I'm not sure I'm in a hurry to get that. I love the idea, but for me, that's one that potentially could wait. And then we'll continue the discussion around the 1383. That's all my comments. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
I think what Councilmember Roach meant to say is she expects the Stack Center to get built. Let's see, Councilmember Syra.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Emily, for the report. And just a huge shout out to Emily for the immense amount of work that went into it. 12 slides it seems like a lot for us now, but it's very little for the amount of work that I think went into this project. I don't have too many comments. Sorry, I don't have too many questions. I think I'm in agreement with what's currently being funded and the request to fund the other projects. I also want to, for the sake of public transparency, share that Feed Hayward is a group that I've helped organize. It is an unincorporated resident-led association of just Hayward folks, and along with community associations like the Eden Youth and Family Center and AIM, to help address food system injustices in Hayward. And so our first project was, how do we bring the right folks together to create a South Hayward Farmers Market? And as the report showed, our other interest is in convening something like a food policy council. So I'd love to hear folks' feedback. And it's 2 of our callers, Yenny and Julio, are members of that, who participate in, the farmers market downtown, as well as have professional experience in this background. So just for the sake of public clarity, I've checked in with the the city attorney on this. This doesn't represent a conflict of interest, but I just wanted to disclose that for the sake of public information. I think that Councilmember Roach took all the suggestions out of my mouth. I think something like a food dispatch center makes a lot of sense. So I want to second that. I think a food resource page was mentioned. I think there needs to be a lot of collaboration between what these food organizations are doing and the information that we're providing and how frequently that information is updated. The approach to refrigerated warehouses, I know we're kind of spitballing here with like ghost refrigerators, but I do think community refrigerators are important. And at the industrial level, what might that look like to help a lot of different food pantries and providers have that space to be able to provide to different parts of the community. So I think some exploration on that front would be very helpful for our city. I agree that school gardens need to be activated. It is a council priority to work with the school district to figure out how we can open up some of their campuses. Feed Hayward did work to renovate the community gardens at the Eden Youth and Family Center. And so there's some support there if we want to try to replicate that model at other schools. And then I think just an argument for, moving forward with this contract with DSAL, Daily Bowl, and TriSet is that this is also one of the ways that we can support small businesses in our community. We have this regulation coming down the pipeline. And I think this is an investment in us having infrastructure ready to help them receive that legislation and adapt very quickly rather than being burdened by it. So it sounds like we're pretty much in alignment up here, but I definitely encourage us, despite the slightly higher than usual price tag, to really pursue that route and prepare ourselves for it. I think with that, I'll end there. Just want to give a special shout out to Jennifer and Julio, who have really helped push Feed Hayward along. And again, Emily, thank you for all your work on helping realize the South Hayward Farmers Market Survey.
Thank you. Councilmember Bonilla.
Thank you, Mayor, and great work. I echo the sentiments of my council colleagues. I think that this is excellent work and very amazing impact. When I look at, the number of pounds of food that was distributed and the number of people that received that food, those numbers are just incredible. So clearly this work is having an amazing impact in our community, and we need to keep it going. As we heard from some of the community today, this partnership and collaboration that's been developed over this period is also quite phenomenal. I don't remember the last time I've seen so many agencies working together to solve a common purpose in our community. We can certainly make broader impacts on other issues when we all come together around a common purpose. I do agree on finding a way to continue to sustain the partnerships and collaboration that's been created. I'm not sure if that's through something like a Hayward Food Recovery Coalition or Council. My colleagues have recommended a Hayward Food Policy Council. For me, I just want something that's going to keep the collaboration going, and it's going to keep the discussions going, but also the joint solutions. It's going to help figure out where the food needs to be, what other partners needs to be involved in this. But there have been very successful models of this right in our own backyard. I'm sure you've looked at some of those, including the Silicon Valley Food Recovery Program and the Food Recovery Council they have. It's quite a good model. The Hayward Food Action Plan, it's actually one of the plans I've enjoyed reading the most as a council member, so I encourage the community to go and take a look at it. It's a great, easy, and powerful read. There's also, I think, a very impactful 3-minute video on the Food Action Plan retreat that happened, and just really goes to show you how much collaboration and partnership went into these recommendations. I do support the recommendation of continuing the community lease for the Hazel Garden. As far as creating the business plan for the entrepreneurial hub at the Stack Center, I think Councilmember Andrews had mentioned it, but as we start to look at entrepreneurial support for small businesses, just making sure that the scope of those small businesses include street and street food and street vending. Perhaps this can even be a support for the folks who are trying to navigate this new ordinance that we put in place once it comes online. The question that I have is, this $40,000 will go to this business plan that will then help us, I would say, apply for capital funding grants to build out this hub, right? So how much money do we need to build this out? So I get this is sort of, a step before actually going and applying for those capital funds, but how much do we think it's going to cost?
Yeah, so I think it's also, we're getting probably to a time where we need to give you guys an update on the Stack Center in general, and where we're at with funding there. We've done a lot of research on federal and state funding sources for capital projects. There are very few federal sources, almost none, except for the federal EDA. Does have an opportunity for up to $3 million, but you do have to have a business plan so this is, I'm not guaranteeing us that we would head in that direction, but this could potentially get us to being able to apply for some of that funding.
Makes sense. Okay, so I'm generally supportive of that. As it relates to the farmers market, one of my questions, and I think it goes to Councilmember Syrup's point around, sort of prioritizing getting this farmers market moving. So when will we make a decision? I get there's been this study that's done, but I guess what are some of the next steps to bringing that farmers market to our South Hayward community members?
So I can jump in on that. So we are currently in conversations with AIM. They would be the farmers market provider. The city would not be hosting the market. So we're working with them in partnership to basically encourage them to come to South Hayward. So that's the idea. And we have a meeting with them on Friday to go over the results. So that's where we are in the process.
Excellent. I like encouraging, incentivizing whatever we can do to get that farmers market moving in that community. I also agree that I think it would be good to have a refresher on 1383, at least for myself. I love the idea of, bringing this kind of, I would say, food recovery framework or network, or, this effort to Hayward. I know it's, $300,000 for this 1 year pilot. Have we looked at, or can we look at grants to fund that $300,000 so it doesn't come out of the general fund? I know Cal Recycle might have some grants that are related directly to starting up food recovery programs. So just something to consider there. And then as we heard from Director Lambden, just continuing to work with the community and work with our partners to make sure that this is the most appropriate model for Hayward. It sounds like a wonderful model, but through some more community input, I think we could really, substantiate that even further for our community. I love the Learn and Earn summer internship program. I would, if it's roughly, I think there was 8 people who went through it, for maybe we spent $18,000 on the program. I would encourage my colleagues to consider doubling that if we have an opportunity to. If there's 16 people that are interested in this, I'm sure we can find another $18,000 to support this program, especially considering the lifelong impacts that we've heard it's making on our youth and on their, future careers in agriculture, sustainability, climate justice, et cetera. As it relates to item 8, the emergency planning for food distribution, I know it says we're going to adopt this sometime in 24, sometime is 52 weeks. So do we kind of know what quarter or roughly when in 24 we're going to see that? Because, we all know that this earthquake's a ticking time bomb. So the quicker we could, get this in place, the better I think we all will feel.
I cannot answer that question tonight, but we will make sure that that is answered for you guys in the next quarter, as we'll have quarterly updates on all the strategic roadmap projects, and that is one of them.
Perfect. So the 5 activities that are covered through existing funding, I think are great. Continue to move forward. And I say yes to the other 4, bring them back, so we can look at them when we're considering other adjustments to our budget, rather that be at mid-year or doing the fiscal process for 25. Those are my comments tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dan Goldstein.
Thank you, Mayor. Emily, Mary, you guys have done an outstanding job. And quite frankly, I don't know how you condensed a year's worth of, learning and policy making into 12 slides. I know this mayor is going to slap me later for acknowledging that, 12 slides instead of 5, but honestly, that's a lot of work.
I will give Emily almost all of the credit, but yes.
Well,
I
kudos,
wish she could have
Emily.
been here.
Yeah, really great job. And I'm inspired by this. I often say how much I love Hayward because of the great work that we do for the community here. But this is really stellar. It not only touches on things like job reentry, earn while you learn, sustainability, climate action, food security, and entrepreneurship. It just really touches so many different aspects of quality of life issues right here in our hometown. And to hear that 1 in 5 people are suffering from food insecurity, that basically means you look over your shoulder and it's one of your neighbors. It's people that we know. So this is really huge. Some time ago, some of my neighbors were talking about the fruit that were growing on their properties. Things like oranges and figs. I don't know if any of my neighbors have avocados. I know I'd be scooping those up. But the question that they had was they were sending out emails to all of their neighbors saying, hey, if any of you want any of this, come to my home and pick it and carry it off. And a few people reported back that at least one of their neighbors had bags and bags full of oranges. There were too many to carry off. And so I'd like to encourage you to explore ways for our residents to participate in this food distribution, which leads me to a question about TriSaid. If they're going to be picking up and distributing food, would it be possible for them also to participate in food pickup at local residences? I mean, they're there anyway. So I'm not sure if that question is rhetorical or not. You look like you want to address it, so go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that I don't think I can answer that, but that it sounds like there's interest in hearing more about all of the food recovery. So I'm writing that down and we can address that. However, I would also like to connect you if you want to Google search for forester.org. We have one of their leaders here. They do specifically work around gleaning in people's fruit trees in their backyard. And they started in Castro Valley, but have come to Hayward and hosted interns this summer specifically for Hayward. So
Oh, fantastic. That's great to know. Who put your hand up? Who's from Fort?
Jan is our community.
Great, excellent. Thank you for doing that. That's a great program. I'll look into that. And of course, pass that along to my homeowners association. I came across a program that's being started at the Alameda County Fairgrounds. They are starting a farm community there. And they've already lined up participants from schools from around the county to come and learn how to do agriculture. They've got, I think it's 2 acres worth of property that they're looking to train people on. So it's primarily around, how to do agriculture, why to do agriculture, best practices, high technology in agriculture. But the one thing that they didn't touch on is in their action plan was what to do with the food once they've grown it. And so I'll do my best to get them in touch with you, but I'm laying that out as a possibility for you to reach out to them as well. I think food dispatch and shared refrigeration are probably going to be 2 really big issues that need to be dealt with. And I'm not sure all of the different ways that we can make that happen. It sounds like it's probably partly going to be some kind of online technology that would, showing where the need is and how to distribute it. As to the shared refrigeration, that might also, be a platform if people know that they have excess space or could make it usable for this kind of food distribution. That would be wonderful. But I also see a possibility. I can't speak for the HVAC union, but a possible collaboration with them, with the HVAC trade union. And I say that primarily because I know that's their thing, but also because they kind of lead the way in making sure that new technology is being rolled out. So like heat pumps. And I don't know if those 2 technologies, heat pumps and food refrigeration go hand in hand. My mind says that they do, but I'm not an expert. So I don't know, but I would suggest perhaps checking in with them. And then can you briefly tell me how food is distributed to recipients? For example, is Meals on Wheels one of the organizations that would participate in that? And I'm specifically looking to address people who have mobility issues and may not be able to make it to South Hayward Parish and other distribution sites. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, they are one of our participants, and they participated in this action plan. I think, they're one of the main partners that distributes directly to homes.
Okay, excellent, fantastic, good to hear that. And then I also want to voice additional support for the South Hayward Farmers Market. In my neighborhood, I live down at that end of town, and people got real excited when I sent out the request to participate in the online feedback form. And people ask me on a fairly regular basis, when's the market coming to our side of town? So, give a boost to those folks that are trying to make that happen. And again, thank you so much for the great work that, Emily, I'm talking to you. Great work that you've done on this report. Mary also. Thank you for that. Those are my comments, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And just want to echo the appreciation for the report. I've been in the food space in Hayward for quite some time, and I have to say this is probably one report that I've read and that I've seen that has really articulated a highly coordinated a model of high alignment, high impact work, right? And so this is great. The great report, wonderful. I have nothing but good things to say about it. But there's one thing, if I were to add something to it, now I'm going to talk to you like a teacher. If there's one thing that I would add to it, because there are some people in the community that you could talk to, is include a chapter, or at the beginning, include a history of food distribution in Hayward, because there have been early pioneers in this space. And I'm not saying me, that you need to interview me, but I'm saying that there have been people in this space for a very long time. The pandemic, as what was said earlier, the pandemic revealed a lot. And one of the things that it revealed was, just the intensity of food insecurity in the city. And, we saw that, of course, through the Hayward Promise neighborhood, and we saw that with Westminster Church providing food for some of the most vulnerable among us. But what we also learned out of the pandemic was that Hayward had a highly coordinated response to food insecurity in an emergency. Just the Hayward Promise neighborhood. We went from serving food twice a month over at Eden Greenway Park to serving food nearly every day, right? The school district, the school district went from serving, 2 meals a day to preparing and distributing 3 meals a day, including dinner and even on weekends, and seeing that kids went home with backpacks and, and so forth. The library turned into a food distribution center. And so, the city, look what we did over at the thing. So, our healthcare agencies, Tiburcio Vasquez, La Familia, everyone, we have the infrastructure, and I think what this report does quite, excuse me, what this report does quite clearly is it shows, that there is a need for a more highly sophisticated, and I think Councilmember Roach, one thing I don't think I've ever heard was a food dispatch center, right? I think that's a great idea. We would just we'd have to find an agency to house that. So anyways, I think that's lessons learned. But the other thing is sustainability. And I think this is something that just, my colleagues and I over the years have been talking about. I know we talked about refrigeration system. That's always been a barrier, refrigerating food. And for anybody who has done food distribution at any site, we're always hustling to distribute, the perishables first, and if there's more, we start doubling and start tripling amounts. And so, it's refrigeration is a major issue. So let's see, what else was I going to say? So anyways, those are some of the big thoughts I had regarding the report. Excuse me, the programs that don't cost anything, continue them, right? Of course.
Should clarify that they don't cost nothing. We're just already a funding.
Yes,
source.
exactly. All right. Yeah. So the programs that that are already that are already being done, do it. I think what we've seen here today with the Learn and Earn, the summer internship program, I think that is something, and I think Councilmember Syrup said it, and I think it was also said here, that is precisely what we've been trying to achieve is, summer internships, summer paid internships. And here we, have an opportunity to rally around a high demand need and a very substantive program, right? That's delivering a very substantive need. I know the desal work, the Daily Bowl, the TriSet, you know, I know that program, it has been, it's been successful. It does everything that, you know, that Mr. Toro mentioned. You know, it's been, you know, clearly it works. We've seen it, and it's really, and the target population that we're really trying to serve is to provide a reentry pathway for folks, and I think that's great. You know, so you know, the programs, I know we're looking at them all here, and they all have a price tag. I'm sure all of these would come to us incrementally, but I also want to go to the beginning of the slide of all the partners. I mean, I didn't count them, but those are several partners that, you know, a program that costs $50,000 or a program that costs, you know, $25,000. I mean, the shared in costs, you know, would have very minimal impact to all of these groups, that I think if there was a coordinated, say, food policy council that we all contributed to, and we're able to, you know, have and to focus on sustainability, you know, the more people that we get involved in this, you know, the less the financial impact it'll be yearly, you know, on an ongoing, you know, on an ongoing basis. I mean, I just looked at the slide again, and I missed Pastor Arlene Nearing here, but you know, Eden Church is on here. I mean, Eden Church is one of the biggest food distributors in unincorporated. So, hold on. So with that said, to go back to the last two slides, yes, continue with you know, the existing programs. Those are great. With you know, when we look towards the future with programs 6 through 9, I think all of those could be viable programs, and we've seen them work, right? They're viable because we've seen them work. I mean, we just awarded 8 students. I think the idea to ramp that up, I think that's, of course, why wouldn't we do that? I think it works. So, and I know that all the other, you know, I'm sure the superintendent over at Eden ROP, I'm sure, you know, I mean, given the event that we went to the other week, clearly there's businesses on board on this, and I mean, we have partnerships, and so I think, you know, this is not a complicated sell, so to speak. So anyways, with that said, just wanted to wrap things up by saying thank you for your work on this. I know you guys have done a great job on this, great report. And you know, the best 12 slides I've sat through, you know, in a long time. Councilmember Zermenio.
Just one quick note. We do receive Measure D funds from stopwaste.org, and that may be a good source of funding for these programs. So.
Yeah, great. Well, and we'll have when we do the report on 13E, they can talk about that as well.
Very good. Thanks.
Thank you. And we will be releasing, we have a website up that has all of this and some other stuff. We will be continuing to add to that. So we'll resend that out to you all when we make that updates. Thank you.
We have one more question.
Oh.
So I did look up the food access page, and it has a lot of this information, but when I type in food, it still has distribution information.
Okay. So we need
I
to
think if you, but
get rid of that.
Is I typed in it in a different language, and it still popped up a lot of
Okay.
the information. So I thought that was really great, but just wanted to let you know.
Cool.
that.
We'll do some cleanup on the back
Yeah.
end.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Emily, thank you too, very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 7. We're still in a work session. This is the Police Community Advisory Panel recommendations. Review and discuss Community Services Commission and Community Advisory Panel ad hoc committee's recommendations for changes to the Police Community Advisory Panel. And this is going to come to us by way of the city manager and our acting police chief, Brian Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm actually going to turn it over to Amy Colbloom, who is our Community Services Manager and has been working with the ad hoc committee as well as Chief Matthews and I on this this effort. She's going to do the brief PowerPoint presentation, and then Chief Matthews and I are here for questions and discussion with the council. So I will turn it over to Amy.
Great, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, it looks like you all can see the slides.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm joining you tonight to present recommendations to Council from the Community Services Commission regarding the Police Community Advisory Panel, which is known as the CAP. Since the murder of George Floyd in the summer of 2020, members of the CSC have expressed increased interest in racial equity and public safety in the city of Hayward and have considered more policy recommendations for council. For example, members of the CSC drafted the resolution that council adopted in November of 21, which was an apology to BIPOC individuals on behalf of the city for its implicit and explicit role in perpetuating historical racism. So that's just an example of some of the more recent work the CSC has been doing in this domain. Staff collected concerns from the CSC's concerns regarding the CAP in earlier months this year and synthesized them and presented an informational report in June to the CSC with that synthesis. Acting Chief Matthews and City Manager McAdoo attended that June meeting to answer CSC members' questions and to respond to their concerns. The discussion at that meeting focused on kind of broadly themes of transparency, information sharing, understanding the current membership of the CAP, identifying ways in which the CAP was operating in alignment with its guiding documents. For example, CSC members asked questions about demographics of the current CAP members, how they were appointed, what the current vacancies were, recommendations for improving information sharing, pros and cons of turning the CAP into a Brown Act body. There's a lot covered in that June meeting. And then at that June meeting, the CSC voted to form an ad hoc committee with CAP and CSC members, as well as a council member appointed by the mayor, Councilmember Roach, to further review and discuss the CSC's feedback. So this slide shows you the specific considerations regarding the CAP that the CSC and then the subsequent ad hoc committee focused on. So the considerations are that the CAP be a Brown Act meeting body, which it's not currently, that members of the CAP complete the Form 700 Statement of Economic Interest, which other appointed body members do, that interviews to fill CAP vacancies be done publicly, that there be a designated dual seat on the CAP for a member of the CSC. So that means what they meant by that is a CSC member could also be on the CAP, and that would be a dedicated seat for them. And then the last was that there be broadly increased transparency and communication from the CAP to the broader community. So that was staff synthesis of CSC member feedback that was presented in June, and then that the ad hoc fleshed out as part of their work. So members of the ad hoc, we ultimately had 3 members from the CSC, 1 member from the CAP, and Councilmember Roche. And members of the ad hoc reached consensus on 3 of those 5 considerations. There was not consensus from the ad hoc committee around making the CAP a Brown Act body, and there was not consensus around requiring that CAP members complete a Form 700. But they did reach consensus on the 3 items that you see here. So regarding interviews to appoint members of the CAP being public, the ad hoc committee was in favor of council making nominations for applicants to be interviewed, and those interviews being confidential by a panel of the police chief, the city manager, the mayor, and a member of council who was appointed by the full council. And then after those interviews, the panel that interviewed folks would make their recommendations to council, and council would vote on the panel recommendations publicly, and the full list of applicants would be made public as well. So there was consensus around that item. There was also consensus for both designating a dual seat and for increased transparency around the cap, that if the other three considerations were addressed, that then no further action was needed. So staff presented the preferences from the ad hoc committee to the CSC just last week on October 18th. And I'm here this evening to now present to you the outcome from that meeting. So the CSC unanimously adopted a motion to make the following recommendations to council regarding the cap. And again, it was unanimously adopted. So the first was to make the cap a Brown Act body. The second is to require all CAP members to complete a Form 700 Statement of Economic Interest. And the third is to adjust the CAP appointment process to reflect the consensus that the ad hoc committee came to. And again, just to restate for clarity, what you see here is the recommendation of the CSC based on the preferences and the work of the ad hoc committee. And the preferences of the ad hoc are presented in more detail in your staff report for this item. So tonight, staff is recommending that the council, one, reviews and discusses these recommendations from the CSC, and two, provide staff with direction on any next steps related to the cap. We also recommend, in addition, that council consider directing staff to make some improvements to the CAP website. This is including making regular updates and adding information about who's on the CAP, meeting dates, other activities, as well as changing CAP membership criteria so that it will align with other appointed boards and commissions in the city by precluding individuals who hold elected office from serving on the CAP, which would be effective in the next recruitment. So with that, I will conclude my presentation. I'll stop sharing and turn it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to turn to public comments first, and I don't see. I'll go to online. I'll go to online first. Calvin Wong.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Calvin Wong, and I am a current Community Services Commissioner who voted in support of the Community Services Commission's recommendations for changes to the Police Community Advisory Panel. That said, while I'm the City Council adopting our recommendations to make the CAP a fully fledged Brown Act body in addition to the other recommendations, I hope that the Council does not stop here. Frankly, when learning about the CAP over my first two commission meetings, I felt quite befuddled by the end of it. I was confused as to why the CAP was allowed to fall into the state of disarray that it was in, confused as to why the CAP had such little authority and policy shaping power, and most importantly to me, why a police oversight body independent of the Hayward Police's influence has not existed before and still does not exist in Hayward today. And that last point's really important to me because how I see the CAP right now, it's nothing more than really a rubber stamp for the Hayward Police to legitimize its decisions while giving off the illusion of civilian oversight or a veneer of accountability. That I don't think is true oversight. And from my own personal experience, I know how easy it is to disregard these advisory bodies whenever the group advises in a way that might be opposed to the advisees' interests. And so I just want to implore the City Council to take proactive steps toward creating a formal public body, whether that is a commission, board, or whatever else, that has truly effective and independent oversight over law enforcement in Hayward. This means that the police chief should have either a limited role or no role in selecting who gets to oversee them. This means that this body must have a degree of policymaking authority and that it means the members of the body should give regularly scheduled reports to members of the city council. And so again, I just hope that the city council accepts the Community Services Commission's recommendations today, but also does not become complacent in doing so. This is the bare minimum, and it should really be thought of as something temporary at best. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have TJ from Hayward Concerned Citizens.
Hi, I am TJ with Hayward Concerned Citizens. And I acknowledge the CAP was born before my organization was, but after reviewing what's on the table, I wanted to offer a few thoughts. I'm really concerned with potential bias in the CSC and the CAP based on recent history and tensions in our city. First, there was an anti-discrimination action plan in 1992, and then there was the commitment for an inclusive, equitable, and compassionate community in 2017. These were really focused on building and maintaining relationships and promoting a sense of security in Hayward. But then suddenly, the good intentions to unify our community were replaced by a set of recommendations, some in the form of demands by our CSC, issuing apologies, banning the use of deadly force, demilitarizing the police, freezing police department hiring indefinitely, and redistributing 10% of the police department budget to community-based services, and then having a public citizen organization to help decide how to budget. Public safety became defined as whatever reduces interactions with police. Well, 3 years later, I hope we can meet somewhere in the middle. We need to ensure that the body representing our community in the CAP truly represents diversity and balance, not just racially diversive, but age diversive as well. Not just private citizens, but business owners from the downtown. Not just those who believe in demilitarizing and de-emphasizing police presence, but those who support positive partnerships with our police. If the intention is for the CAP to represent our community, then let's increase outreach and let's have the city put out surveys once or twice a year to better measure community trust. If the goal is to make CAP meetings transparent and public, then let's make them hybrid like the other meeting bodies and include Zoom to extend them to a wider section of our community. Let's include reviews of good outcomes as well as what could be made better. Whatever's decided, you have a commitment to all stakeholders in Hayward. Their input and opinions matter. Just take a look at next door once in a while. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Now we return back here. Our first speaker is Jesse Gunn.
Red is on. Okay. Thank you, council members, for this opportunity to speak. I'd like to express first my appreciation for the privilege of serving on the Community Services Commission. You'll notice that I tend to be rather quiet at these meetings, as I believe in the importance of listening before speaking. And what I've discovered in doing that is a shared vision and a shared set of values among very diverse residents of Hayward. The recommendations presented here tonight represent months of work, months of collective effort, discussion, revisions, reflections, and this process began long before my appointment. However, I do wholeheartedly support these recommendations, and I kindly request that you consider adopting them. I'd also like to encourage a thoughtful reflection on the initial purpose for which the Community Advisory Panel was formed, particularly in response to the tragic events surrounding the murder of George Floyd. And it's clear that CAP has not fully met its intended goals, and I believe it's important to acknowledge that. If CAP were a fully functioning, accountable body, we would not be here discussing this tonight. I wish to express my concern and oppose any efforts that might remove this valuable community involvement piece in this process. I think it's crucial that community members continue to play an advisory role in public safety. And if you take a minute to review the minutes or the videos from our commission meetings, you'll observe the enthusiasm and dedication with which commissioners have approached the challenges faced by marginalized groups in Hayward. And I'm relieved to see that these recommendations are presented to you now ahead of the long grueling work that we had ahead of us over the next few months to actually review the grant proposals. And I hope to see this same level of energy and vitality and commitment from commission members persist through that process. I'd also like to highlight that tonight's recommendations did receive unanimous support from Community Services Commission, but it's also worth noticing that there was a bit of surprise on the faces of many of the newer commissioners upon realizing we do not have a community oversight of our police department like many places in the Bay Area do. While a majority of the commission expressed interest in this, it was also collectively agreed that now is not the right time to attack that onto months of work in this process. Council members, I urge you to adopt these recommendations. I want to let you know that there is an interest among the Community Services Commission members who spoke to continue this work. However, I invite you, council, to set a roadmap for how we can get this sort of oversight outside of this body. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is, and hopefully I say this right. Is it Tyne Johnson?
Good evening. Is it on?
Yeah.
It's on? Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Tyne Johnson. I am a commissioner for the Community Service Commission. And I want to say that I'm excited to be a part of the commission and the work that we're doing and very proud of the work that we're doing. And I'm in support of the CAP being approved tonight to move forward with being a Brown Act meeting. And there's a couple of things that I just want to highlight that you all know as being people who live in Hayward and also do the great work of Hayward. A couple of things that are recent incidents involving community members being assaulted by the police. In September 6, 2023, there were 2 police officers that shot and killed a man for allegedly being armed with a BB gun. In 2021, there were 2 incidents that were happening where officers were witnessed punching and kicking an alleged suspect. There was also another incident in January of 2021 of a man who was shot by Hayward police and then filed a lawsuit against the city. I'm not saying their names in respect, but these acts are concerning. And I do believe that the CAP acts as a coordination of us working together with our officers. But I do think that we need greater oversight, given that we don't have an oversight committee, given that these are high profile cases. They're cases that people are talking about within our community that are being impacted in our community. So I want to make it clear, I am in favor of us moving forward with the CAP and working with the police chief. I'm in favor of what the commission approved, but I believe that we do need greater oversight. And it's clear to our community we need more of a robust and effective system of oversight for our police department and our advisory board. We also need to receive community feedback and complaints, make recommendations to the city manager on job requirements, application processes, and candidates for the chief of police, especially when vacancies occur, and create and implement an annual work plan that includes a community outreach plan to ensure that all members of our community have an opportunity to share their concerns about community policing. A police oversight committee is not an obstacle to effective law enforcement, but a critical component of building trust, accountability, and transparency. We need a system that we can investigate, address, and prevent instances of excessive force and misconduct. So in conclusion of our recent events within the last couple of years, I do believe that we do need a comprehensive solution. And I want to implode that you as council members approve the CAP recommendations from the Community Service Commission. And also, I want to thank you for allowing me the space and the time to come forward with my observations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Austin Bruckner Carrillo.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City staff, and members of the public. My name is Austin Bruckner Carrillo, And I'm the current vice chair of the Community Services Commission and was unanimously elected chair at our October meeting. I'd like to begin by thanking Councilmember Goldstein as our council liaison, Councilmember Roche for generously serving on the ad hoc committee, and of course, Councilmember Sharap as our immediate past member on the CSC, and the incredible staff that make up the team that support the CSC, Dr. Cole Bloom, Carol, and of course, Ms. Evelyn. On behalf of my dedicated colleagues on the CSC, I'm proud to respectfully request your strongest consideration of our recommended reforms to the Community Advisory Panel. The recommendations before you are balanced, well thought out, and these recommendations seek to more closely align the Community Advisory Panel with every other commission within our city regarding public transparency. The recommendations brought before you also takes into consideration the need to recruit candidates with lived experiences and diverse backgrounds, and perhaps at times traumatic or triggering involvement with law enforcement. The recommendation before you factors this in regards to recruitment while establishing a process that I believe to be leaps and bounds more transparent than the current interview process for the CAP. In closing, I would like to thank Georgette, who is the lone CAP participant in the ad hoc process, and I would like to acknowledge the Honorable Sarah Prada, who called into our October CSC meeting to express her full support for the CSC recommendations. These recommendations were unanimously approved by each and every one of the CSC members, and it's my hope that council will move these common sense recommendations forward. Thank you, and I yield my time.
Okay, thank you. So I don't see any more online, and these are the only 3 cards that I have. I'm going to return up here to the dais and Councilmember Bonilla.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the recommendations that we heard tonight from staff and from the CSC. I've spent a lot of time thinking about public safety as well. It's been top of mind before I got onto council, and it's certainly been something that's remained top of mind as I've been on council. And I've also had some conversations with members of the community and with members of a few key members of city staff to really start to kind of think about how do we elevate our, let's call it, oversight of public safety across the city of Hayward. And I appreciate all of the feedback that I've received. I appreciate the feedback from the CSC, the ad hoc committee, and the colleagues of city council who've served in those forums. The recommendation that I'll be putting forward tonight, I think will address a lot of the CSC's requirements or recommendations, but also those of what we heard tonight from some of the folks that have called in. Based off of the discussion from the CSC and members of our community, I think it's time to put oversight of our public safety efforts across the city at the highest level of oversight possible, which I think is returned back to the city council. It's actually my recommendation, as we look at public safety and as we look at public safety being a community and a council priority, I mean, after all, it accounts for more than half of our general fund, and it's one of our top council priorities in terms of improving and enhancing community safety and quality of life across our city. So with that, what I would like to do tonight, and I would love to hear from my colleagues, is propose forming a new permanent council public safety committee. I think that this committee should be formed in accordance with all other council committees, where it's made up of 3 members of the council who are appointed by the mayor, accountable to uphold the Brown Act, uphold public transparency. We're required, and these committees are required to agendize their meetings. They're required to have and invite the public to speak and to provide feedback and community input. I think the scope of this council public safety committee should include, at a minimum, citywide public safety oversight, which includes fire, our HEART and MIU programs, police, public safety communications, ambulance services, and emergency preparedness, including public safety facilities. So I would like my colleagues, here tonight to consider directing staff to act on bringing back a recommendation to form this council committee with a clearly defined purpose, charter, and meeting schedule. I hope this direction is clear, but I welcome input from staff on this as well. And I would encourage my colleagues, if they agree to say so tonight, so we can provide clear direction to staff related to improving public safety oversight across the city of Hayward. Those are my introductory comments, Mayor, and some of my initial thoughts in terms of this recommendation tonight as it relates to the work session.
Thank you. Okay. Councilmember Goldstein.
I'm actually surprised they came up so early. But for the sake of people in the audience, Kelly, would you mind reminding folks what the CAP was initially formed for?
Sure. So I think actually TJ talked a little bit about the original anti-discrimination action plan that the city established in 1992. We formed the community task force in 2016 and 17. That community task force came forward with a number of recommendations around how to create a more inclusive community, and as the task force was called, an equitable, inclusive, and compassionate community. And there were a number of recommendations around law enforcement and relationships between law enforcement and the community that were based on former President Obama's task force on policing. And so one of those recommendations was the formation of some sort of either oversight, community panel, some sort of community engagement process for the police department. There was a robust conversation with the council at the time. Given provisions in the charter for supervision of the police department and how that operates within the city structure. The recommendation was to put together a proposal for a body that would represent different community voices throughout the city. And that would then provide input and sort of guidance and be sort of a two-way communication venue or outlet for the police department, for the police chief and the police department, and then backwards from the community back to the police department. So that was sort of the history and kind of how that the community advisory panel got started. Unfortunately, it did not go, and when Chief Matthews and I were at the June Community Services Commission, we had a lengthy conversation with the commission. It's unfortunate that the commission changed a lot of its members between that June meeting and this last meeting, because they missed a lot of this sort of context setting discussion that we had done previously. The CAP, we had as interview process, all council members were able to, so we got applications, a very wide range of applications. Council members were able to select a number of those applicants to be interviewed. Former Mayor Halliday, former Police Chief Mark Kohler, and I did those interviews and made a recommendation for the initial members of the CAP. And then as we were getting started, we brought on a new police chief in that same period of time. And then shortly thereafter, COVID hit. So the CAP really didn't get an opportunity to get kicked off. And then with COVID, it was really challenging. There were some online meetings. And then obviously the tragic murder of George Floyd sort of redirected all of our attention in a very different way on public safety. So I would say the CAP never really got to do what it was originally set out to do, which was to create that bridge between community groups and the police department. And then this last kind of year, a lot of the members have resigned. A lot of the members have been absent. We did realize that the attendance chart that was attached is not entirely accurate. So I can update that for the council. And I apologize that wasn't 100% accurate. But I think, you know, the conversation about what the CAP is, what it does, what the council would like to direct, and how you would like to see this go forward, I think is an important conversation, and one we've needed to have. Again, it's a little challenging because, again, we have an interim chief of police. And so there was some reluctance to bring changes forward while we were still in that sort of transition period of leadership of the police department. So I hope that provide some context. I'm also happy to share additional thoughts, but that's just sort of my perspective on where we've been.
Thank you. That was very comprehensive. But just getting back to the meat of the issue, was the CAP ever designed to be an oversight board?
No.
So it's really just about opening dialogue between community members.
Correct.
And the police department. All right. So for the benefit of the audience, can you explain how police oversight works in the city of Hayward?
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, there's, I think, a lot. If you're talking specifically about the city organizational structure, under the city charter, myself as city manager, I have oversight responsibility for all city departments within the organization, with the exception of the city attorney's office and the city clerk's office, as they are your other two council appointed officers. So it is my responsibility and obligation to obviously oversee the police department. However, and I'll maybe turn to Chief Matthews, there are a multitude of other ways that the police receives oversight. And then we have also, the council has also added some layers to that over the past couple of years. For any fatal use of force, we now refer, we actually started before the state legislation was passed, refer those directly to the State Department of Justice. We now employ an external consultant who also reviews independently any fatal use of force within the police department. And then maybe I'll turn to Chief Matthews. You want to share some of the other ways from the state perspective, and then also other ways we have oversight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, City Manager McAdoo. I think some of it's already been touched on tonight with respect to this body here, the council, as being one of those entities that has oversight of not just the police department, but other city departments. Depending on the nature of the incident, there is oversight that is the responsibility, at least at the county level, of the district attorney's office. That's true in the case of police shootings. Depending on the nature of the police shooting, as the city manager mentioned, the Department of Justice, and then again, in line with city policy, we automatically refer officer involved shootings that result in fatalities to the Attorney General's office for review. The other forms of oversight, one of them is voluntary, and that's the CALIA accreditation process. CALIA is a national and now international entity that goes through the accreditation process for police agencies. These are subject matter experts from other parts of the country who come into our police department and look at everything we do. There's 400, I believe, 80 something standards that we have to show compliance with. These are folks who have a level of clearance that allows them to see things that other oversight entities do not. And that happens on an annual basis, with every 4 years being an on-site where not only do they interview city staff, members of the council, the city manager, but there are public forums where members of the community can come and provide input and feedback on the performance of the police department. That's all part of the CALIA accreditation process. In the state of California, we now have SB2. So the state is now involved in the oversight of police departments, particularly as it relates to misconduct. We are obligated to share not only complaints that come into the police department with the state, but the state actually has the ability to accept complaints and do their own independent investigations of allegations of misconduct. There are 9 separate categories of misconduct, everything from dishonesty to excessive force, that we are obligated within 10 days of receiving a complaint to notify them. And then they have the decision to either refer it back to us for investigation. And then at the end of that, we provide them with the completed investigative packet. And that is the entity that now can decertify a police officer in the state of California, not just temporarily, but permanently. So once a decertification happens, that person can no longer be a police officer in the state of California. So there are a variety of different forms of oversight that we currently have in place.
Okay, thank you, Chief. And SB2 came about in response to the events of 2020. Is that correct?
I think that's a part of it. It became law, I want to say, not this past January, but the January before, and it's taken some time, to build that out. But they have already, I don't have a number to share, but they've done a number of decertifications already in the state of California.
Okay, good. Thank you for that answer. And the CALIA accreditation actually has, if I remember correctly, it's 5 levels of accreditation. Is that correct?
I'm not sure how many levels they have. I know that we've met the gold standard though here in Hayward
Okay.
for
and
the
the
last
gold-
couple of accreditations. Yeah.
And the gold standard, by that you mean the highest level of accreditation,
The
correct?
highest level of accreditation. And it's again, it's a voluntary process. There's 1% of the police departments in the United States that elect to go through that process. It's very labor intensive. And, you know, I think the gold standard is considered to be 1% of the 1%.
So congratulations on that, and thank you for your answer. Is it your opinion that the CAP in its current role serves a purpose? So does that dialogue that you are able to elicit from the members when you have those meetings, is it something that you value, and would you prefer to continue that?
Well, I think I'm always interested in community dialogue, whether it's the CAP or otherwise. I think the comments made by City Manager McAdoo, you know, are accurate in that, you know, when this thing was developed and stood up, it really didn't have the opportunity to take off and progress in the way that we hoped it would. Despite that, you know, there have been conversations that we've had as it relates to policy, as it relates to critical incidents, including officer-involved shootings, as it relates to the sharing of perspectives based on experiences. You know, we've had all of those conversations, and I would say, yes, they are meaningful. They are meaningful conversations.
Good, very good. So I hope you will continue with that program. You know, from my personal experience, I know that when folks are asked to participate on a voluntary basis and have some level of anonymity in the conversations that they have, they're far more willing to talk about things than if they are held to a public meeting standard. It changes the tone of the conversation, can be considerably, as well as folks who are willing or unwilling to participate in a public body versus simply being able to come to you and voice their opinion. Had you found that to be true for yourself, or am I not correct in my 4+ decades of experience working with law enforcement and investigative bodies?
You know, I don't want to speak on behalf of members of the CAP in terms of, you know, the differences in conversation. I think that for my own experience, at least in the current format of the CAP, it has allowed for more open dialogue when, you know, I understand the function of having an agenda, and we do have one of those for each meeting that both the police department and the members of the CAP are allowed to provide input into. But once you get into a conversation, there's often a component of it that's very free flowing, right? You know, one conversation leads to another, and people have the opportunity to bring forward, you know, real issues that they're dealing with in their particular neighborhoods, et cetera. And so I do think, I would imagine, and at least have heard, you know, that in a public setting, you know, folks may not be as open just because of the setting.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I'm very much in favor of making progress on the issues that our public speakers have identified. And I think the proper way to do that is not to install another layer of bureaucracy, but it is to do our job. And our job on City Council is to hold our departments accountable. And so I am fully in support of Councilmember Bonilla's recommendation, and would like to ask my fellow council members to weigh in on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Roach.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll be getting to Councilmember Bonilla's recommendations, which are interesting. I just want to say that I did serve on the ad hoc committee, and you know, we had discussions in the committee, and there's some things I wanted to make clear about that. Well, first, that the outcome of that committee has now been overridden by a new
recommendation from the whole CSC. So I understand that. But I also wanted just to make clear that the CAP was never under the purview of the CSC. The CAP members had no obligation to attend these ad hoc committee meetings. One did attend as a volunteer, but the CAP has never met as a body to even weigh in on these recommendations. And I think that's something that, would be interesting to get their input on that. They weren't part of this. There was no reason to be compelled into it. The CSC certainly didn't have the authority to ask them to be there other than asking them to be part of it, like as a volunteer. So I wanted to get that clear. And I do have a little bit of a bone to pick, and I said this during the ad hoc committee, so I know it's not a surprise, but we appoint members of the CSC to do the work of the CSC, which is to make recommendations to the council on funding recommendations for a nonprofit, for CDBG grants. And when we make those recommendations, that's the expectation. That's the work we're asking the CSC to do. And it certainly doesn't say public safety. We're not trying to make that recommendation. And while I understand that it's within the purview of the CSC to ask information about what's going on in the city, to me, this is a sort of misalignment and is beyond the mission. And we can talk about that. I know some bylaws have been changed, but to me, CSC doesn't equal public safety. And so, I do have a little bit of a bone to pick in how this even got here. I think it was Jesse made the comment that, there was, if we watch the video, that there was excitement around this. And I think part of the reason I have a bone to pick is when the CSC's recommendations came before us last year, there wasn't anybody here to speak to it. I asked specifically, there wasn't an excitement about it. I want to know where the actual work is happening in an exciting way. And I think if I saw that and that at that time I asked questions about that, and there wasn't anyone, I asked specific questions and there wasn't anyone to support those recommendations. So to me, there's a little bit of a confusion about how we've moved forward this way. And I do want to address that going forward. But for now, because the recommendations have changed, I'm really interested in Councilmember Bonilla's comments about that. I think he's right that over half of our general fund goes to public safety. And I think, once he made the suggestion, it is strange that we don't have a public safety committee. We have committees for sustainability, for economic development, so that we can vet issues every month on a smaller basis with several council members. And so I think that this might be the way to go. It's sort of one of those ideas of course, so why haven't we done this before? Especially with so much of our budget going to public safety. So I will be really interested to hear the staff come back on such a committee and what that would look like. And it would, to me, it would solve all the problems that I think the C is asking for. It would be fully transparent. It would be a Brown Act body, just like the other committees. There would be posted, there would be meeting minutes. So I think that might solve a lot of the issues that we're talking about. It would be a council body, a subset of a council body in order to address public safety on a more ongoing basis, which is what I think part of what the concern is, that there is sort of an ongoing look at whatever issues come up, but also sort of planning ahead and making sure we're addressing needs before they become a problem in the community. So I'm really interested in this idea, Councilmember Bonilla. And then as far as the CAP goes, I'm not sure where we go with if we went forward with such a recommendation or we looked at the CAP, but I'd be in favor of the staff recommendations tonight for the CAP, which is sort of how we first got here, which I have to bring that up. But I'm not sure if we continue with that. I do understand that the CAP has been made to kind of deteriorate a little bit. So maybe some updating of the website I thought was appropriate, and posting of when the meetings might happen. I thought that was reasonable. But besides that, I think maybe bringing it back to council might help solve some of this confusion and oversight that we're talking about. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Syra.
Thank you, Mayor. Want to say thank you to the commissioners that are here tonight and the work that's gone into this. And thank you for your continued advocacy. Thank you to City Manager McAdoo and Acting Chief Matthews and Councilmember Roach for participating in these conversations with the ad hoc committee as well. I want to start by saying that I agree with the Community Services Commission's recommendations, but I think that they should be applied to the creation of a new body separate from CAP, and that CAP should be suspended because it doesn't feel like this system is necessarily working. I think whatever that new body is should address the areas that Councilmember Bonilla listed just a minute ago that would fall into the Council Public Safety Committee. The reason I'm not fully committing to that body just yet is I want to propose a slight alternative to be presented in addition to what Councilmember Bonilla is presenting here. In essence, I think we need a body that answers to the public, to residents, and to council instead of answering directly to the police chief. And I think this is where we made a mistake with CAP. Is we had a body that wasn't accountable to the public and wasn't reporting to the public. I also think that we have to have more room for folks to weigh in on how our city is approaching public safety. And what I like about Councilmember Bonilla's recommendation is that public safety is much larger than just law enforcement. And that we are able to have discussions that are longer than just 3 minutes of public comment, or residents are able to have conversations that are longer than just 3 minutes of public comment. Like Councilmember Roach said, 67% of our general fund goes towards public safety roles, primarily the police and the fire department. And both departments are two of the only ones that don't currently report to a city commission or a council committee. So it does seem like a no-brainer to have these departments be able to report and create a space where the public can also be part of those conversations. So if I were to move forward with the council committee that Councilmember Bonilla is proposing, I would still want there to be a role for residents beyond just public comment. And I would want to encourage us to consider having some appointed commissioners or whatever word we feel is appropriate advisors that could contribute to our decision-making. Otherwise, I would ask that we apply the CSC's recommendations to a public safety commission instead. We saw protests from the outside in 2020 and beyond, many that I was a part of. And now we see a clear set of demands coming from the inside by commissioners from across our city. And we made a really intentional point of recruiting commissioners from across every part of our city, from all walks of life, to TJ's point, that we appointed to help us better understand our community's needs. And I understand it's not fully within their charter, or that could be up to interpretation, but they're telling us unanimously after months of meetings what a step in the right direction looks like. So, I think whatever direction we decide to go, I believe resident participation is critical. Oversight is a tricky word. And so when I suggest something like a public safety commission, I'm not talking about giving full oversight to this potential body, nor are they asking for that. Most of our commissions are recommendation-making bodies. Even the CSC, when they go through all those applications and interviews and talk about how we should fund community services, they just give us recommendations. We end up approving it at the end of the day. So I still think there's value for having residents make or participate in formal recommendations regarding public safety topics in our city. So whether that's a new public safety commission or a public safety council committee, the resident participation is what's critical to me here. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mayor Pro Tem Andrews.
Thank you. Thank you for your work on this. Thank you for your service, CSC, as well as the CAP. I have a couple questions, comments. I'm going to try to be brief, but I just want to acknowledge I'm concerned that there wasn't a CAP member to speak on something that they're in charge of in terms of being the community, advisory panel.
So I actually wanted to say, Georgette Munoz, who served on the ad hoc committee, she apparently tried to submit an e-comment earlier today, but I don't think it got registered. We received an email saying she had submitted it. So, and I apologize. I think she may have had a conflict with this evening's meeting. So I know she had wanted to express her comments to the council, but I think that it didn't happen in the way that she had intended. So I know she did participate in the ad hoc committee and has made comments about it.
Thank you. And how many members are on the CAP again?
So there were originally 12 selected. One never served based on a conflict of interest. And then I think we're down now to 5 or 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So about 5.
And Sarah Prada did call in and give comment during their recommendations, just for the record.
Yes. I understand that. I think I do agree with some of the statements from all of the council members that have spoken so far. But I think for me, the process, I still would have liked to see more participation with the CAP, including on the ad hoc committee. I understand there was one representative. Curious to see why there was only one and there was 4 or 5 from CSC when it was how many? There was 3. So there was 1 and then 3. So I think in general, I understand that there is a lens that the CSC looks at quality of life issues, but there needs to be a more balanced lens when there's an ad hoc committee bringing recommendations, especially if they are not technically in charge of that particular subject. I would say I do think CSC does cover a lot of life affirming services and a lot of quality of life issues, but I'm saying that in general, not just about the cap, but I will have problems with Keep Hayward Clean and Green saying we care about green issues. So we're going to go talk to CSC about bringing more funding to go towards green issues that happen in our community. And we're going to direct them to do that. So I would just say, just in the future for the staff, this is not for CSC, but this is more for staff to ensure that we have, if we have 2 bodies on a subject, then it needs to be balanced on that. And
so I think this is where some of the conflict came in.
Yeah.
So the CSC basically formed the ad hoc committee
Okay.
and said, go invite the CAP members to join us.
Okay.
And only one CAP member chose to participate. So we can't direct CAP
Okay.
members to participate. I mean, that would have had to come from the council, which it didn't. And so
Okay.
it was a question of 2 council appointed bodies trying to weigh in on each other's work. So
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, so anyway, that was how that all came together.
Yeah, maybe there's some internal things that we can do to make sure that people's voices are heard, are balanced on both bodies. And I also think, as I would say, as city council, we take a lot of responsibility in terms of how it got to this, but also we need to think about contingency plans when there is a body that's not meeting. We need to figure out, what are we going to do? What if there's a chief that if our chief is out for a very long time, an extended period of time, there's an emergency that's happening, we just don't stop meeting on the other bodies. So I'm not sure how we can resolve that if we do continue with the cap, but I do think just as the staff as well as the council, we need to think about contingency plans when our bodies aren't meeting and not functioning well. I also wanted to know, what is the role of the CIC if we were to form this body? Because a lot of police related items come to actually the infrastructure committee, which is a body of council members.
So as you've been having this discussion, I've been just thinking kind of initial staff responses. I would highly, I mean, the council's been very thoughtful about adding new council committees and potentially taking council committees away. So, I mean, I would encourage that we think about, is there, if we're going to add another council committee, should we combine or reduce another committee somewhere else? So whether it's infrastructure, I think there was, I think there's some other things that we should be thinking about there. And I would encourage the council to be thinking about ideas around that.
I would like to revisit that committee because there is a lot of police related items that come through that committee. And I think there might be some duplication of effort if this new committee was to form. Also wanted to know, can we confirm how was the survey that was on public safety? We distributed that citywide, I believe. Can we confirm?
Is that the one in 2020 that we did?
Uh-huh.
Yes. So that was a statistically significant survey of all residents of Hayward. I'm happy to provide the council with that, link to that survey again. We actually polled on the demands that were put forward at that time, as well as just some other general commentary and questions about public safety. In addition to that, We had a large sort of community outreach process, which involved more sort of qualitative, personal one-on-one interviews using Chabot students to talk about sort of what makes people feel safe in their neighborhoods. And so there's still on the city's website the heat map that shows where those community interviews were conducted and kind of some findings from that. So I'm happy to reshare both of those with the council. I would say generally, in that's resident survey, which again was not just registered voters, it was all residents, that there was a general feeling that there was not a desire to support, a majority of the community did not support freezing police hiring, did not support some of those recommendations, but did support allocating additional funds toward mental health services and supportive services for the homeless.
So I just want to show the progression of this. So the CSC made recommendations, and we did have a survey in response to those recommendations.
I think the survey, I'd have to go back and look at the timing because the recommendations actually came from the Hayward Community Coalition. It was not the CSC. The CSC then came forward with the recommendation for the apology resolution that included some additional recommendations that stemmed from. So I think it was HACOCO's recommendations first, then the survey, then the CSC action is how, if I remember how things progressed.
Okay. So the reason why I'm bringing it up is just to show that survey, in my opinion, was responsive to the community. It was responsive to a body that wanted to see changes to public safety. We did a survey, we listened to the residents, and then the CSC brought their recommendations. We were responsive in terms of creating the policy innovation workshops. And the policy innovation workshops were after the CSC recommendations, correct?
I think they were in simultaneous. Same time.
Okay.
frame. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I just want to make sure that it's not that I don't want to, I want to make sure we do have more transparency in how we review our police department and the issues there. I just also want to let the community know and acknowledge the work that the city has done and has worked on. We did add on mental health support as part of the activism from HACOCO, as part of the activism from CSC. Just want to make sure that we're not losing that. And then also want to make sure that we are acknowledging that when there's an officer involved shooting, we're not the only entity that is involved in reviewing these cases. And I hope that CSC looks at not just their advocacy of what they're doing inside of their bodies, and now looking at what other bodies are doing that the city council actually appointed, but look at the people that are actually in charge of holding officers accountable and looking at reviewing cases, whether it's advocacy at the state, advocacy at the DA's office, advocacy at the county, whatever it is. That is actually the real work that really does need to happen to figure out what do we do to prevent these issues from happening, and then how do we hold people accountable when these issues happen? Because we have been referring these cases to higher bodies that actually have the authority to hold people accountable, and we're not seeing it. And so we can have this new body, we can have the CAP, we can do all this work and change it, but what's going to happen after we have that meeting? What's going to happen? I'm curious, I'm really curious, what is going to happen if we create a new body, have the CAP oversight with the new body, give the Brown Act increase to this CAP? What is going to actually happen when there's an issue with a police officer involved shooting that doesn't pass the sniff test? What is going to actually happen to that officer? I don't know, right? So I hope that we are going to be responsive to the CSC, but your advocacy, our advocacy is broader than you all making changes to a body that was more of
it was an advisory. It wasn't being held. The chief wasn't in charge of the CAP. They were just getting information to the CAP and seeing how can we make this information more accessible, more transparent when we do present the information. That's what the CAP was for. It wasn't anything more than that. And it's kind of being transformed into something else that it wasn't. And so I am supportive of having a new body, but I don't want another rubber stamp committee, just like you don't want another rubber stamp board. I don't want another rubber stamp committee that's not going to do anything. Because that's what everything I'm hearing, it's not going to do anything. So what are we going to do as a city? What are we going to do from our perspective? What are we going to do to make sure our officers feel like they're doing their job? Also feel like they're going to have, someone who's going to review the case fairly, but also hold them accountable when it's not right. It's not here. So I'm actually a little disappointed that no one has brought up the elephant in the room, that this is all lip service. And the CSC, if you're going to bring up issues with the CAP, bring up the real issue of holding officers accountable, and it's above the CAP. It's above the CAP. So I'm fine with having a hybrid approach if we want to have this public safety committee and have more transparency and having CAP members involved, because I do feel like we're making decisions on a body that they're not here tonight to hear what the issues are, but also hear how they should be structured, what they should be doing. I just feel like we're not involving everyone in the room tonight, but I do agree. We do need more transparency. We do need to have stability in how we are addressing these cases and making sure that it's consistent. I am in agreement of that, and I appreciate the CSC bringing this issue to us. We did know this was an issue. We were reviewing it, but I do think we need to really think about the real issue is how do we hold people accountable? Thanks.
Thank you. Council members Arminio.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the speakers. Thank you for CSC for taking the initiative to look into this. Thanks for the CAP folks also. Let's see. A Public Safety Commission, acting police chief, your thoughts on a possible public safety commission? Salud. Committee or commission? Committee. Salud.
All right. Sorry, are you asking about what's been recommended here tonight?
Right. Your thoughts.
First of all, I'm an advocate of transparency. And I think that anything the council asks us to bring forward, we're happy to bring forward and talk about. And I think that, having a committee that's specific to public safety is a functional solution. I know to Council Member Andrews' point, we have brought a variety of different programs and initiatives to the CIC. And so the work of bringing things to a council committee is something that we've already done. And so having one that's specific to public safety, given the community concerns around, policing and the way that we conduct business, in my mind, makes sense. But again, this is up to the council. But I do want to make sure that folks know that even in the CSE meetings and the conversations that we've had, transparency has been kind of the key issue, and we're certainly partners in making sure that we're doing what we need to do in that space.
Okay, thank you. The work that we do through Kalea, I think it's very good. Colleague Andrew speaks of the elephant in the room. So let's suppose that there is a public safety committee, and let's suppose that there is an officer involved shooting. What would the process look like? And this is brand new, so I may.
I think that's probably the direction that council would provide in terms of the investigative process in the aftermath of an officer involved shooting. it would remain the same. You have multiple entities who are conducting these investigations, the DA's office or the DOJ. We have that third-party consultant group that would still come out and do the independent administrative investigation. So those processes would not change.
Okay.
It's just a matter of what the council and what the Public Safety Committee would want us to bring forward
Mhm.
and what conversations we would have around that. I think that's something that would be council
All
directed.
I think this has been born because there's the thought of lack of accountability, lack of transparency. So this possible committee could begin to work with that. When there's an incident happens at the moment, we have a report in closed session. So if there were an incident to happen, would it go first to this possible committee and then to us in closed session? Any thoughts on this?
I'll just weigh in, also let the city attorney weigh in as well. I think we tried to be as transparent as possible. I mean, that's the whole point behind, producing the body cam footage from these incidents. Obviously we brief the council in closed session first as a whole, so that so you have an awareness of the incident before it becomes public. I think my recommendation would be that continue, and that we continue to release body cam footage from the incident. And then if we form this public safety committee and there's a desire from the committee to review the incident after those discussions have happened, I think we also have to be a little cautious. If there's litigation that arises from one of those incidents, then it would be difficult to talk about that in public while there was active litigation. I don't know, city attorney, if you want to add anything to those.
Well, Mayor and Council, in terms of accountability, the city manager and the city attorney are the only two people who are accountable to you. I'm not going to put the city clerk in this conversation. The council can't hold accountable the chief or officers who have the ability to use lethal force. So I think there would be challenges to the committee, if the committee is formed, in what you seek to accomplish by way of either specific incidents or policies and procedures that you would hope would lead to less use of force. There are specific incidents, obviously, say an officer involved shooting, resulting in death or serious injury, that the council might not be able to talk about publicly. On the other hand, the council is exposed to lots of details that other bodies aren't. And I think it puts the council or committee in a unique position to talk about them without talking about specific incidents, but to use that as a platform to talk about public policy, procedures, and a future that results in less force, if that's a goal. So I'm hoping my comments are actually sort of constructive in that regard. And so I'll stop there.
Very good. Thank you. It just seems that this whole process was born out of a lack of trust of our police officers. So I want to make sure that people out there are aware that we're trying to ensure that there will be complete transparency, there will be complete honesty, that folks, residents who feel slighted or who feel harmed by police officers will be able to come in to this possible committee and say, this is what happened, what can I do? Help me out. So that's, in my mind, that's very important to our residents. The majority of the emails that I receive are about public safety. So that's something that's important to everybody out there. When we had the 2 vacancies for city council, my question was, what is public safety to you? And they are all very well versed in what it was. In my mind, public safety is not just the safety that is provided by the officers, but it's also no trees in the street, no, the roads in good shape, firefighters, ambulances, that's very important. That's public safety. I've also wanted to have an art and culture committee, but of course, in my mind at the moment, that is not as important as a public safety committee. So my notes, let's see. Okay. So I do favor a committee that will look into all aspects of public safety that is inclusive. We have a possible new police department building, so that there should be a body that looks into it. We are going to always have CALEA training. So we're always going to have officers on motorcycles training, so that we should be knowledgeable about that. And I think that our residents will always want to know what is happening as far as the people breaking into cars, or what is happening with the homeless taking over a property. That's public safety. So I do like colleague Bonilla's proposal because it is inclusive. It takes into account every possible measure of public safety in our city. And there's this transparency aspect of it. The fact that it would be a body that we would be responsible for. And I think that it's important. So I thank colleague Bonilla for thinking outside the box a little bit. I don't feel that there is a need for another subcommittee to a possible public safety committee. I think that once people see the city council is taking this public safety seriously, they're going to form a committee. And I think that people are going to be impressed because we are taking it seriously. So again, I thank you, and I'm hoping that everybody votes for it.
Okay, thank you. Before I comment, I wanted to, since Councilmember Bonilla, since a lot of people were responding to your proposal, I just wanted to see maybe perhaps if you wanted to respond to anything or before I comment.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I know the fire chief is on the line too. So before I ask him to weigh in on what his thoughts are around this council public safety committee, I'll give him some time to get his thoughts together. But as I was hearing my colleagues, speak tonight, if the electorate and if the community of Hayward has voted us in to provide a safe community for them, accountability has to sit with us, and we have to find a way of driving deeper levels of accountability. And this committee will allow us to start having that discussion. I mean, I hear the frustration that our hands might be tied, but our hands have to be the ones that are untied because the community might feel like their hands are tied. So if we're meant to bring their voice, this is an opportunity to bring that forward, I think, in a way that allows us to look at public safety through the lens of what's important to our community in the time that the discussions are being had. So when I think about a lot of this discussion up here tonight was around officer-involved shootings. That happens once or twice a year, if even that. We have other public safety issues. Of course, when an officer-involved shooting happens, it is the most tragic. It's, very jarring for all of us, and we don't like them. But there's other issues in the city that we need to be considering when we're looking at public safety. How quickly are public safety officials showing up when we're calling 911? How good is the ambulance service we're getting in the city of Hayward? We live on a Hayward Fault. Are we prepared as a community to deal with the aftermath of that? So when I think about this citywide, at a minimum, what we're going to be looking at here is citywide public safety oversight. And again, I don't want it to include, respectfully, trees and other things. I want it to be focused on police, hard in the milieu, fire, public safety communications, ambulance, emergency preparedness, and the facilities that they use. If there's a tree issue, we'll take that to the appropriate committee. If there's confusion about what goes to public safety versus infrastructure, let's use this as the time to clarify that. And as the city manager said, what committee might we be able to take off the table to put this one on? And when I think about things under infrastructure or public works generally, I think about Director Ameri and all of the things that he's accountable for, of which one is the airport. So what I would recommend is that the airport committee folds into the infrastructure committee, and we retool that to make sure that it's very clear on what their scope is. We bring online this new council public safety committee, and to council member Armenio's point, we sunset this subcommittee that we're calling the police accountability or the police action committee, the CAP. And the reason why I feel so strongly about that is, in 160 years that the city's been around, council has not had this kind of direct oversight of public safety, and it's been a continuous #1 priority for everyone in our community. The power sits with the city council to ensure that the city is meeting the priorities of our residents, and we need to step up to the plate, direct staff to come back with the formation of this committee with a clear purpose, a clear charter, and a clear meeting schedule. And I would love to hear the fire chief weigh in on, his thoughts around this, since this will also impact his department.
Sure. Thank you, council member and mayor. I've been listening to the conversation and a lot of good points, and agree wholeheartedly that it would be a wonderful opportunity to be able to share the projects and successes and challenges that we face on the other side of the public safety element, and also share our successes that we have in our partnerships with the police department and other city departments. I think that, every year I try and fit in as much information I can at one meeting, at a budget meeting. I've been accused by multiple mayors of not being succinct enough, and I think this would relieve that burden of trying to fit it all into a 15-minute presentation and be able to have ongoing dialogue, and not have to specially schedule meetings to talk about specific priorities or setting priorities that the council and that the community wants to see take place in the functions that we have. We have a lot of really important endeavors that are going to be taking place. You mentioned the MIHU, ambulance transport. There's a lot going on in this space, as well as the broader healthcare space. And I think updates on a timely manner would be something I would really appreciate having the opportunity to partner with.
Thank you, Chief. And thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to just keep talking until I start coughing, and then I'll stop. Well, let me say this, just kind of, in some preliminary comments. The two words that I keep hearing coming across is transparency and accountability, right? Transparency and accountability. And accountability, I think clearly, there are many levels of accountability, not only locally, county, state. The chief outlined, and I just quickly took a quick tally here. The chief outlined anywhere from 9 to 10 different layers of accountability, right? At most. And then if you include the CALEA standards, which is another 400 and something, that's a lot of layers of accountability. And the elephant in the room, and let's just take an officer-involved shooting, and let me ask the police chief, and I know or even the city attorney. If a police officer involved in an officer-involved shooting conducted themselves criminally and it was found that particular person behaved or conducted themselves in a criminal way, what would happen to them?
Well, I would expect that they would be arrested and prosecuted.
Which is being held accountable, right, for such conduct, right? And we have seen that. It's happened. We've seen it on the news and so forth. And we've also seen a whole variety of degrees of accountability, right? And so I think, and here, you know, with us on this council, we have implemented different regulations and policies. I mean, we've done things here to increase accountability. In fact, many of the accountability policies and actions that have taken have come directly as a result of public advocacy. I mean, we've done that. I mean, I've been up here, you know, I've been up here 13 years. We've done it, right? Now, transparency is another word. You know, we are transparent. I mean, with all of these layers of oversight, community input, right? Council input. I mean, and then not to mention, there's a sort of another voice out there, sort of social media input and media input. We live in a time where transparency does matter. And I think we've responded. I think the council has responded. And what I don't want out of this conversation tonight is that I don't want the community, and I don't want, members of the CSC to walk away thinking that we're not accountable and we're not transparent, because we have been. We have been. Right? And so I want to be clear about that. When the CAP was formed, when I read this staff report, I was a little perplexed, because when the CAP was formed, some of you were not on this up here yet, but when the CAP was formed, we got lobbied, we got pressured, we got advocated. I mean, there was public comment after public commenter after public commenter, and they wanted an oversight, or they wanted an advisory panel to the chief of police. Okay, we did that. And the criteria of the members, right? Let's not forget the criteria of those members. They wanted formerly incarcerated, they wanted undocumented immigrants, they wanted people who had interactions with the police, good, bad, and/or otherwise, right? And they wanted the members to be anonymous. They wanted the members to be anonymous, right? Because we were dealing with undocumented, and we're dealing with formerly incarcerated. I mean, protecting protecting the person's identity was paramount. It was paramount. I remember it. I mean, it was a very lengthy meeting. I think it might have been an online meeting, but it was very lengthy, right? And the intent, we defined this panel with that intention. That was the whole intention. Because we wanted to create a safe space. We wanted to create a psychologically safe zone and a safe space so people can be truthful to the chief. And that's why we had the chief of police, the city manager, and the mayor interview. The other reason why this was an anonymous, or I shouldn't say anonymous, but we were sort of protecting the identities of the members, was because we were doing background checks. Was the other one, right? So protecting the identity of these members was paramount. And so now we want to do 700 forms. Now we want to do, open interview processes. We want to do, so for me, it's like, what's the trade-off, right? Like, what is it that we're really trying to get at? I mean, if we're this, the direction of this new committee completely goes against the original intent of what we wanted. We wanted accountability, and we wanted honest discourse with the chief of police, the city manager, and the mayor. That's why we did this. And so now we're in this place where we want to completely open it up. Fine. Okay. But I just wanted folks to know where we started, right? That's where we started. So now we're here. So I want to be clear about that, because because I don't think members of the CSC know that. I don't think members of the CSC, I've spoken to some CSC members, they didn't know about that, you see. So I wanted to be clear about it. The other issue I want to bring up is oversight. This point about oversight. And there was a comment made earlier, and where the comment was that the chief of police, having, Councilmember Syrup, I'll refer to what you said that you don't want a committee, and I absolutely agree with you. You don't want a committee where the chief of police is basically accountable to nobody, or I forget how exactly how you put it, but basically where the chief of police doesn't report to anybody, or yeah. Well, let's be very clear, and this is where I want to come back to Councilmember Bonilla. I want to be very clear. Let's be very clear about the role, right? Role clarification here. The chief of police reports to the city manager, and the city manager reports to us. So the chief of police doesn't just, speak out into the wind, and he's not accountable to just out to the wind. He's accountable to the city manager, and the city manager is accountable to us. So let's be, I think your role clarification and your sort of your role clarification comment is very important in for this committee. So I don't want the public to walk away from this conversation thinking that the chief of police is not being accountable or is not held accountable for whatever happens in the police department. He's the leader of the police department, right? And there's no role confusion there. I'm not confused. I don't know. I mean, so I want to be clear with that. Now, the proposed committee that Councilmember Bonilla is proposing, I like the idea, because you're absolutely right. Survey after survey after survey. We've been, I forget how many community surveys we've had, but the number one issue on every survey has always been crime and safety. Number one, that's the number one topic, right? In fact, crime and safety was the number one topic when the Hayward Promise neighborhood did their neighborhood survey, right? Now, there was also questions in there regarding trust, and Councilmember Cermeño, you made a comment about trust. I would slightly disagree with your comment in saying that, the relationship between our police department and the city of Hayward, there has been a great deal of trust. There has been, and the surveys speak to it, right? The survey. Do people want to see more community engagement? Yes. Do people want to see more frequent patrols in and out of neighborhoods? Yes. I mean, all of that is the case, right? But I don't think, and at least I haven't seen any profound data that has said that we have lost trust with the city of Hayward when it comes to the police department or any of our patrol officers. Right? We might disagree on that, but I haven't seen the data. And so, so the fact that the community, year after year, survey after survey, tells us that they want us to make this a priority. They want us to make this a strategic initiative. They want us to make sure that we make crime and safety first and foremost in our priorities and our planning and our goal setting and all of that. I think merits that this committee sits with us. Absolutely. Now, I understand what the city attorney mentioned, talked about, and I think we can come up with something. And I think what Councilmember Bonilla said, I think you said it right on point. The mission of this committee should be clear and focused. The scope be clear and focused without committee creep, right? Without creeping committees, right? The roles should be very clear, what we do, just like any other committee that we have, right? Just like any other committee. Now, as you were talking, I was thinking, I think one of a happy report to any one of our executive team members would be, we're eliminating a committee. They would be all right. But I think we could collapse committees. I think collapsing airport into infrastructure, fine. We can, we even talked about even eliminating infrastructure at one point. We could, but I think Councilmember Andrews brought it up. I don't want a committee just to have a committee, right? It's got to be thoughtful. It's got to be intentional, deliberate. And I don't want staff to feel that this is just another committee that council is throwing out there that we want work on and work around. And so the one ask I would ask is that if we do ultimately turn this into a committee, that we really think about eliminating a committee or collapsing committees, or because that's so there's that. And then community input. I think this point about community input is yes, absolutely. We've never walked away from community input. Never. I've been up here a while. We have never walked away from receiving input from the community. As long as I've been up here, I have never seen any of the chiefs of police walk away from community input. I've never heard a chief of police since I've been up here say, I don't want to share this with the community. I've never heard that, right? And so I think what Acting Chief Matthew says when he says that he's more than willing to share the story. Absolutely. And I appreciate that. I know you, and I've never heard you say, I don't want to do this, I don't want to share this. Right? And I think in fact, so much so that I'm glad that you even brought back, where I know the position was vacant, but you made it a point to hire a community engagement specialist in the officer rank, right? Where her job is community engagement, right? So anyway, I know I'm sort of rambling on here, but I just, yes, I support this new committee. Yes, I'd like to see that happen, and I'd love for staff to bring this back to us. But I don't want the city to walk away from this conversation thinking that we're not being transparent, that we're not being accountable. and that we don't want oversight, because we do, and we have. And I think the record of all of us up here, I mean, I think I can speak for everyone up here. I think we've supported these things, both in closed session and in open session. And I think we can all be proud of that. Personally, I think we can all be proud of it. And so has our city attorney, our city manager, the executive team. I mean, I think we've all taken this very seriously, and I think we've been supportive of that. Anyways, Madam City Manager, Mr. City Attorney, and Interim Chief Matthews, do you have enough to come back?
Yes, I think we've heard sort of where the direction of the council is. I think we can come back with some proposals and also maybe some just policy questions that can get answered. But I think we can come back relatively quickly to put something together for the council to consider.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Mr. City Attorney, appreciate it. Thank you. Okay.
Mayor, can I just would, before we move on to the next item, just maybe a time check, since it is 10:35 already. And the next item is also likely to be a lengthy discussion. If the council would like to start that item this night or maybe continue it to another meeting, it's already 10:30 p.m. So
it is 10:30. When's the next meeting? November 7th?
November 7th.
November 7th. Get through it. So how many, just kind of a show of fingers, how many want to continue? Who wants to continue this item to? Okay, so we got, how many wants to do it tonight? Let's start there. One. Who wants to continue it? Okay. Okay, yeah, because I don't think my voice would have lasted another. Yeah, okay. So I think Councilmember Syrep wants to make a comment that's going to be very brief, right?
Very brief. Okay. One, if you're going to close out a committee that I'm on, I'm calling dibs on whichever committees open up. So that's the first point I wanted to make. That was a little blindsiding, but that's okay. And then just in the spirit of being transparent and accountable, I just want to say, according to our most recent community survey, homelessness, the cost of living, and graffiti are top issues. And then crime is directly underneath that at 65%, extremely important to our community. So it is important, but I just want us to be truthful about what our community is prioritizing right now.
Good point. Thank you. Okay. Councilmember Goldstein, very brief.
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, listen, I really want to thank the Community Service Commission members that you guys have been working on this topic for a very long time. And I know that it's been a long, frustrating road. And I want you to know that you have been heard. So your primary interest in seeing transparency and accountability in our public safety, that message has carried. And I hope you have heard a resounding support for those ideals. They're noble ideals. We agree with you. The only issue that we had was, how do we do that? And what we're saying tonight is that's our job, and we're not going to abdicate our job. We're going to stand up and do it. So I just wanted to acknowledge you and thank you for carrying that message forward. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to put a close to this now, and thank you, staff. And we will continue the legislative item number 8 till the November meeting. Next is council reports and announcements. Are there any council reports and announcements? Does anybody want to announce trunk or treat on Saturday?
The city manager mentioned it, but also Keep Harry Clean and Green is doing a cleanup. So if you want to go there in the morning at Tennyson Park and then go trunk or treat after at Heritage Plaza, that'd be great.
Talk to you afterwards. Okay, any other announcements, reports?
One quick one. Report any dead birds you see. Mosquitoes.org. Report dead birds. We're in a West Nile virus season. Thank you.
Okay. Report dead birds. Okay. Okay. So if there are no further reports, I'll move on to council referrals. There are no council referrals, so I'll move on to adjournment. So tonight's meeting, I am adjourning to, in loving memory of a young girl, of a student who was a Hayward High student. She died on October 18. Her name was Kewela. Now I'm going to say this incorrect. Kawehelani Karian. And Miss Karian, she was 17 years old. She was a Hayward High student, and just, tragically, something happened, and then and she collapsed, and she could not be revived. She was a Hayward High student. She had, a 4.5 GPA. So clearly she was an incredible student. And she was active. She was engaged in a lot of school activities. And right before the meeting, I was notified that the mom had remembered that this young girl, when she went to elementary school at Stonebray Elementary School, and Stonebray is the school designee for the Mandarin Chinese immersion program, and Kehualani would talk about how she would go to the Chinese New Year parade in San Francisco when she was in elementary school, because I was going there. I would go with the class, and we were marching in San Francisco. And so, the mom mentioned that, and, and I started thinking about it, and, we don't, when things like this happen, it's absolutely tragic. And we don't like to see this, particularly with, young students, a 17-year-old, clearly a shining star who had a bright future ahead of her. It was just really sad news to hear this. So in memory of Kawehelani Karian, may you rest in peace. God bless you. Meeting adjourned.